Gaming news today is a bit all over the place. First, a debate is brewing over Xbox's future hardware, and while the dust continues to settle on Xbox's handheld efforts, Laura Fryer, a former Xbox employee, made a video that's making the rounds, and she seems to think that Xbox has lost their way and that they are essentially exiting hardware. We're going to discuss and maybe even react to her video as so many other people have. Second, PlayStation has doubled down on its stance with first-party games hitting PS Plus day and date. What does that mean for their current plans, and what type of games do you think they're going to be targeting, or could you expect them to target for day and date on PS Plus? Third, Marathon leaks are hitting the air, and it's currently in a playtest, which is under NDA, but apparently we're seeing some improvements. Now, will those improvements be enough to change the current trajectory of the game? We'll discuss that as well. And as always, I've got a game for your wish list and your radar. So if you're watching this later or you're listening to this in any of the other locations that we post our content, consider supporting the channel directly on YouTube with a membership. The Member Plus is $6. You get into all my extra shows, Green Room at the end of the day, Friday nights with my wife, when we do like fun games with you guys. And then also you can support on the Purple platform if you have Amazon Prime and a Prime sub, or you just want to support. You won't see ads over there. Also, if you're watching on YouTube, make sure and hit subscribe, the like button, and all those things. That does support what I do. So let's just kind of jump into this one. First, all about Xbox's future. So in case you missed it, a former Xbox employee thinks that Xbox is leaving hardware, and in light of the recent changes and marketing push from Xbox, it's hard not to agree with her. Laura Fryer was there in the early days of Xbox and helped with launches like Gears of War, and her breakdown is in a video called The Future of Xbox. She walks through how she feels that Xbox lost their way with the Xbox One, and they never really found it again. It's a very good video. I recommend watching it. Support the full video. There were some pretty big clips floating around on Twitter that I think almost served as replacements, and that's not really how that's supposed to work. If you're going to react or use content, be transformative, and then again, encourage people to watch the actual video. Now, the quick summary of the video is that Xbox is shifting away from hardware, opting instead to let other companies make the hardware for them. Now, when you combine that with their move away from exclusives, Laura thinks that the demand for these devices in the future are going to struggle, since Xbox games are basically going to be playable everywhere. PlayStation, PC, maybe even the Nintendo Switch too. So do you think that she's right? And where does this sort of lead you to stand on the future of Xbox hardware right now? You can let me know in the comments below, or try to be here for the live streams. Now, the other subject is one where another company is sort of speaking about their strategy as well, and this is from PlayStation. So if you were hoping to see first-party PlayStation games land on PS Plus, like on their launch date, you're going to have to keep waiting. In a recent interview with Stephen Totillo from GameFile, they spoke specifically to this, and they said that, quote, "We have sort of stayed true to our strategy across the board, where we are not looking to put games in day and date," which sort of begs the question, what sort of games do they look for to put onto PS Plus day and date? Insider Gaming said the following: PlayStation prefers to go down the indie and third-party route regarding what to offer subscribers, and that it is, quote, "working really well across the platform." So it seems that for the foreseeable future, PlayStation is just going to continue to put 4 or 6 indie or third-party titles a year on the service day and date, and they will bring their own games to the subservice a year to 18 months later. So what do you guys think of this strategy? Do you agree with it? Do you disagree with it? Again, you can leave a comment below, or make sure you're here for the live discussions so you can tell me what you think in the live chat. And then this one's always a little spicy as a discussion topic. Marathon. Is Marathon getting any better while it lays low and out of view of the public? Well, recent leaks from a playtest are showing signs of improvement, but the question is, will it be enough? The leaks honestly don't sound earth-shattering, and given everything that has happened, they're going to need nothing short of a miracle to give this game a shot and reverse public perception. Recent PlayStation town halls indicated that the game lacked the fundamentals of a fun game, but it did have good shooting mechanics, so they were going to press forward. Now, the playtest leak had some improvements, like a rifle has been added, changes to the black market when players are down. There's a blue blood visual effect that's been added. A medic class has been added with some new abilities. Revive timers are reportedly much longer. Many maps are providing clear information and other updates to the graphics. Now, this doesn't really move the needle for me. I'm curious if it does for you. This just sort of sounds like quality of life improvements to a game that has been described by SIE as not a fun game. So I'm not really sure if they're tweaking the right things in order to really turn the game around, or if this is all just sort of going through the motions because they know this game is essentially DOA. So again, you can let me know in the comments below what you think about this. I always come back to these broadcasts and try to read those comments or try to be here for those live shows. That's a great reason to hit the subscribe button and the bell button. And if you guys are currently watching in the live or later, make sure and hit like. That really helps us out. All right, now I've got a game for your wish list and your radar. If this game somehow missed your radar, that would be sort of shocking, but I believe it should be on your radar, or at least on your wish list. Okay, this one is called Blood Message, and the recent revealed trailer took the gaming world by storm. The trailer, just on IGN's channel alone, has over 3 million views, and they describe this as a narrative-driven linear action-adventure single-player game. And just one watch of the trailer will show you why lots of people are already anticipating this game. Influences from Assassin's Creed, God of War, and even like very, very intense, frenetic sort of like Souls-like games are very apparent. It's being developed by 24 Entertainment. They are known primarily and mostly for Naraka Blade Point, and it is also published by NetEase. NetEase kind of has their hands in everything from mobile games to MMOs, and as this one is a narrative-driven linear action-adventure single-player game, some of those concerns that they might put in some microtransactions and things like that might be a little less worrisome. Now, they are currently targeting a PC and console release in 2026, so be sure to wish list or add it to the long list of big games that are coming that you think or I think are worth checking out. And remember, we always like to have feedback from you guys, comments from you guys, so be sure to leave those comments below. And the real important thing is to make sure you're subscribed to the channel so you don't miss these talk shows, these live shows where we get to go back and forth, and we're going to do that right now. It's time for the discussion. That's a show open. It's a short one. It's a quick one. We are starting the show now at 9 o'clock. We sort of felt that morning coffee was such a great vibe that we just decided to start the show at 9 and just like jump right into everything that we typically enjoy, which is just discussing things. We also sort of felt that we were spending so much time with the members, we weren't spending enough time just in public broadcasts. Like, we were spending an hour in morning coffee. It was very disruptive to the start of the show. I was consistently and very late to the start of the show. And then we were also spending a couple hours in the green room in the afternoon. And it's like we were only doing a live show for like 2 to 3 hours. So we decided to give you the same amount of content, and you can still treat this like morning coffee. Just come in, bring up what you want to talk about, get the day started, and you're not actually losing content. If anything, the people that are subscribed or follow the various channels, they're going to get more, and you guys that are members are still going to continue to get Green Room and Friday night, as well as the stream on Fridays with Hilly. So again, guys on YouTube, make sure and smash the like button. This earlier start gives us a chance to get a little bit more momentum on the day. And I got to thank Joker Quinn. Trophy unlocked, 25 months. And then Han shot first, and so did you. Joker Quinn is going to be the first thing of the day, the first gifted of the day. Thank you very, very much. You guys did a bit of a scramble this last week, and you got really, really close to the stretch goal of 1,000 to try to unlock a doubleheader. We ended up making Friday night more of a music night again because nobody was really wanting to play the video game that we had picked out, which I'm totally fine with. So, yeah. If anybody's like upset about not getting morning coffee, just know this is probably going to be a better and more seamless day for you. Instead of me starting at 9 and then having to take a break, and then you have to wait for me to start the new stream, and then like you've got to switch. This is going to be a more seamless show for you. It'll be a longer show, and it should just allow for the conversation to continue. And we do have a hype train started over here on the Purple platform. JD Kent has resubscribed, as well as Siege Master. Siege Master hit 20 months and says good morning, and then JD Kent says like the changes. Well, I appreciate that so much, and it is now officially tied between the two platforms. Thank you very, very much. YouTube actually let the Purple platform win on Friday. It was a shocking turn of events. Loading Lona was a Wes Anderson fan. It gave him more brownie points for me. Oh, really? That's funny that I've never spoken about his movies. I'm in morning coffee finally. Gray badge win. There you go. You did it. You snuck in. The Laura Lady cooked Xbox. Yes, if you guys didn't see, her video is actually doing really, really well. And I love that people are discovering her. I have been subscribed to Laura Fryer for a while. So if you have, I've never showed you her channel. I feel like I've shown you guys her channel a handful of times. She is great. Okay. She is fantastic. And she just continues to grow. When I subbed to her, she was still under 25,000. And the future of Xbox, when I watched it, only had 15,000 views. So it has doubled its view count. So good for her. We may end up reacting to this. Let me just go ahead and see when she posted it. It says a day ago. But no, the 28th. It's been 2 days, so it's the 30th. I generally like to wait 2 days before reacting to something, unless it's like a monstrous channel that we're not going to, affect in a negative way. We do like to wait about 48 hours. Evidence jumping back in with 30 months. Your show keeps evolving. Love it. Keep moving forward. Thank you. This is actually more of a return to form than an evolution. Like, this is kind of what we used to do. Morning coffee was just an idea of how to start the day earlier, and then we thought, well, we should just be starting the day earlier in general, and then there's just more content for YouTube and just more chances for us to meet new people. We were really noticing that the live streams were not a great growth engine for us, and I was like, well, maybe we just need to be live longer. And thank you, Bareth Chosen, for gifting a member, and Michael C. for renewing. I appreciate that so much. That's going to bump the line by 2. If you guys want your memberships to count in the contest or the daily total, you do need to be at Member Plus and above. So thank you so much, Michael C. I passed my test. I'm now level 2 England boxing coach. Nice. I kind of like it like this. I get used to background play. Yeah, especially with background play. You know what I mean? 2 days should be good. Show the video. Yeah, we will. Maybe we'll do that a little bit later. I kind of want to get in, to the talk show and just kind of be vibing with you guys before I pull up videos and react to them. I feel like reactions should be sort of in the second half of the show. No One Understands Me says, people seen it from miles away. King Thrash, Porter Rock 77, even Reforge Gaming. I found out about him through his convo with Thrash. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to see somebody from Xbox say what so many of us. I've never tried to take credit for these predictions because guys like Thrash and others made the predictions well before I did. I walked into this gen with confidence that we were going to get a really, really strong gen from Xbox. You guys remember, I would have this debate with you all the time. I called Xbox a sleeping giant. I really thought their strategy was going to pay off. And I called their ecosystem strategy back in 2017 because it seemed like their language was changing, but I thought it was going to work out and be really great. I guess you could argue for them it might be great. For me and what I wanted, I don't. It's not what I wanted from the company. And thank you, V-Game Veteran, for 24 months. Dude, that's a red badge. Keep up the good work. I don't comment much or agree with you all the time, but I appreciate your integrity. Well, I appreciate those kind of comments mean more to me than agreement. Like, I've had a lot of people lately say, hey, man, I don't always agree with you, but I love the show. I think that speaks well of you, and I hope that speaks well of the content, so thank you. And you guys have 30 seconds to roll the hype train over on purple. You're about to run out of time if you want to level it up to the next level. You guys crushed it on Friday. Do you think the PlayStation 6 will release in winter of 2027? No, I do not. When we were going into the 4th year of the gen, they said we were entering in the latter half. So I would imagine that means 2028 is when they have the PlayStation 6 tentatively planned for. A hype train and talk shows and podcasts. I'm just doing an experiment, Rope. I feel like we got better exposure the other day, and I feel like we got better followers. I don't feel like we're ever getting seen or noticed in the Just Chatting directory. We were in talk shows and podcasts the other day, and I felt like new folks were actually coming in and hitting follow. So I just think we drown in the Just Chatting directory. Did I miss anything? No. The problem is I'm upset. You've ruined my sleep schedule because your music is so good that I kept repeating it over and over again. Your taste in games and music is similar to mine. Well, I appreciate that, Hobbs. Thank you, man. The PlayStation 6 is not dropping until at least November 2028. Nothing before that. Yeah, I feel like 2027 is too early. And again, I'm just basing this off of what they said in an earnings call. Like this was when they were falsely quoted by IGN at saying latter stages, and that's not what they said. They said latter half, meaning, okay, we're now entering the second half of the gen. So English O says, hey, let's get this line moving, but then right behind him is Pathalon Phoenix with a 20 bomb, the first 20 bomb of the week, the first milestone of the week. Unreal. Pathalon, oops, they were trying to summon you and MASH on Friday so badly. Thank you for kicking off the week strong. I owe YouTube 5 members already. Thank you very much. English O in their 46-month VIP renewal. That's a big one. What the heck year is this? Lono is on purple, free flow chatting, dissing Bungie and dumb decisions, and certain streamers are still inflating view counts. I mean, people can waste their money. I don't know why people do that. Could we get 15 more likes on YouTube? Speaking of view count, that will help us out on YouTube when you guys go crazy on the like count. The turnout on live streams has been really unpredictable on YouTube. And we had issues with the ingest server the other day. That certainly doesn't help, so hopefully it doesn't happen today. They said latter half last year in 2024, which to me sounds like at least another 4 years of PS5 before the PS6 release. To me, it signaled we did 4 years. We're now entering latter half. We're going to do 4 more. I think 2028 is the release window. Now, I'm not sure if you can remember when we played Aliens Fireteam Elite on the 3rd mission, you were getting spanked, and I played the last couple of plays. Every mission was a horde mode. The mission almost except this mission. You have to kill 2 specific enemies that drop cores twice over and turn them all off. Once the second wave, stupid amounts of enemies spawn and you aren't intended to fight. It's a curveball mission. I vaguely remember that, Hilly. That's the game where I zoomed my camera in and left it zoomed in for a long time and did not know. Did not realize it. The PS6 release date is somewhat irrelevant outside of a couple of games. The PS5 will be supported for a few years after release. This is true. Did you see Grubb's reason for Microsoft adding Steam to their store and potentially future Xbox? I did not. What did Grubb say? Did he say it on his podcast or did he say it on Twitter? So is the ROG Xbox Ally an Xbox or a handheld PC? That's the debate. Here's what I don't understand about the debate, okay? And listen, I've got a video coming today where I am advising people to proceed with caution, okay? Essentially, I walk through this gen, all the claims, and the pattern that I've noticed with Xbox, okay? So I'm advising caution in the video later today. I am trying not to make this some sort of, oh, he's just bashing Xbox. I'm like, listen, this is a pattern with them, so you need to be very careful. The pattern of they say something that's technically true, and it gives everybody a false impression. I feel like the exact same thing is happening with this handheld, and yet now, instead of coming from Xbox like Phil Spencer and Sarah Bond, we have personalities and fans and pundits essentially doing Xbox's work for them. They're saying things that are technically true in order to give people a false impression, okay? And this is my question. This handheld can run Steam games. It is essentially, up until this point, these have been considered handheld PCs, okay? And you've been able to do that. And now you can load up this Xbox application, okay? My question would be then, if that makes it an Xbox, why have we not been talking in that way about PCs this entire time? Why did we not have folks bragging and saying, hey, I can play your PlayStation games on my PC, and my PC is an Xbox? Like, nobody was saying that. It feels to me that the only reason that the linguistic shift has happened here is simply because of the marketing of Xbox. Which, listen, if you've been compelled by their marketing, and that's now your opinion is now everything is an Xbox, that's fine. You can have your opinion, and we can debate what that even means. My confusion is, well, how do you then differentiate between them? Because you have an Xbox Series X that can play all of my Xbox library. It's got backwards compatibility. And then right now, I can buy an Asus ROG Ally X, and I cannot do those things. I cannot. So if they're both Xboxes, what are you going to do to differentiate them to say, well, this is an Xbox that can do more Xbox things than that Xbox over there? Like, I don't care what you call it. I'm just asking for clarity. It's like, well, okay, fine. If this is something that you truly believe, if you've been compelled by their marketing, you think this thing is the future, and you think that everything is now an Xbox, okay, we don't need to debate that. You can have that opinion. I don't have clarity now on what you mean. It's genuinely confusing. It's like, okay, I have a Series X that can do things that this Asus ROG Ally Xbox handheld will not be able to do. So what then is what how do you differentiate between them? Is there going to be new terminology needed? Because it's like, if you're trying to tell me, well, this is an Xbox, I might not even, well, like, wait, are you talking about a console? Are you talking about a handheld? Are you talking about a PC? Eventually, we may even have a hybrid where it's like a PC and a console. So even within the banner of Xbox, it sounds like you're going to need other terminology to properly communicate what a device is able to do, what its capabilities are. The Alters legit is one of the best games I played in the year, and it's less than 40. I was excited to see what Mighty Keith thought about the Alters when he said he was diving in. I wish I had more time for it, because I'm deep in the throes of Death Stranding, too. A $5 super chat from WGC says, it's a video. Basically, it's Microsoft betting the EU courts will end closed-wall stores, and they are trying to get ahead of it and look compliant. I don't know if I agree with that take. Thank you guys for 100 likes already on the video. We've only been streaming for about 20 minutes. Make sure you guys keep going through that ritual. FCat says, let Laura cook. I am so glad people are discovering her. I've been subbed to her since she had like less than 25,000 subs. I think when I subbed to her, she only had like 15,000. And I was like, she's making great content, and she's got the expertise to back it up. And she decided to really take a swing and say, listen, I think they're done. And and there are obviously people reacting to her content and sharing their own opinions. I may end up doing that today because I like her content quite a bit. She just seems extremely sweet as well. Like, she seems like she would be enjoyable to work with. Like, when she was at the company, she talks about that a little bit in the video and how she kind of got passed over for a promotion. And it sounds like she handled it very well, like handled it with grace. And in the realm of the conversation, she's got some very interesting takes, because it's like, oh, well, yeah, she sees what so many of us have been saying, is that it seems Xbox is leaving hardware, and I touch on that in today's video as well. YouTube caught wind I'm playing Death Stranding 2, pushed spoiler ending videos to me, thumbnails and titles designed to annoy. Oh, that's a bummer. That should not happen. New Yote trailer has a shot of the main character's eyes at one point. It looks so sick. I don't know what's happening, but it could be a wallpaper. Yeah, I saw that trailer circulating this morning. I think, is it for the collector's edition? I think they're doing like one last push, it looks like, for the collector's edition. Aren't these handheld even less performative than the Series S? Yes, and again, if you're going to benefit from the device, and this is something that I argue in my video coming later today, if you've determined that that's the best experience for you, you're going to buy a handheld for $800 or $900, and you're going to play Miles Morales, you're going to play a PlayStation game on a less performance device, and you think it's worth spending twice as much as it would cost just to buy a PS5, but you've determined that that's the best value for you, I think that that's fine. I just keep coming back to, the consumer needs to be properly informed about what the device is capable of, and I believe we are in the deep weeds of the AstroTurf. This is the era of time that we get into with Microsoft, where they say something, and then everybody starts repeating what they're saying. And I firmly believe it is all designed to obfuscate and confuse. It is not designed to properly inform the consumer about like what a device is truly capable of. So let's just do a comparison. If you go and watch the PS5 Pro announcement, it's kind of boring. It's sort of slow. It's very drenched in technical terminology. I was even sort of critical of it. I said I didn't think they did the greatest job positioning the Pro in a way that would like appeal to the average consumer, but I don't think they were necessarily trying to do that. Now compare that to how this Xbox handheld has been discussed, and then how has it been discussed by people who, in my opinion, they're sort of running PR for the device. And that's fine. If they want to do that, if they want to get sponsored deals and sponsored segments, as long as they're using hashtag ad when they got like a hands-on or invited to an event or something, as long as they're doing that, that's totally fine. But if you compare the two, I feel like it's a dramatic difference in clarity. There was no question what you were going to be getting when you bought the Pro. It was like, oh, yes, it's going to do that. I'm going to be able to get that when I play, you know, one of the games that has like a quality and a performance mode or whatever. I'm basically going to get like those things combined into one. And this device, I'm literally seeing tweets from people. I'm seeing comments from people. They genuinely are thinking about this in a way that just doesn't seem accurate at all. It's like there is, to me, again, I believe this is a manufactured thing. This is something that Microsoft excels at. I think they've done this with Xbox this entire gen. They say things that are technically true. They're just vague enough that you walk away with an impression that is untrue, and then you want to come back around and be like, now wait a minute. And it's like, well, no, they technically told you the truth. I was watching Destin yesterday, and he's saying it's a slimmed down OS when it's just a setting in Windows. Well, the goal, the application is not the end goal. It's my understanding their end goal is to strip down Windows 11 and to have a gaming OS that is, because that's why they want Windows to be the biggest gaming platform. So like when Sarah Bond says that, and we learn that they're basically abandoning their own handheld, and they instead want to dedicate their efforts on the software side. That, again, to me, that's an internal shift that is likely going to be represented in a bunch of ways. They're essentially saying, listen, this is our core competency. Let's stick to software. Let's make a better OS. Let's publish as many games as we can. That's their path to profitability, to greater profitability in the gaming space. That's not a bad thing. It's just a matter of how you look at it. Like that's not what I want from them, but that ship has sailed. They're not doing what traditionally how they built the brand. And this is where Laura Fryer was good. It's like you've abandoned all of the things that we built essentially with the 360. Like everything they built with the 360. The beginning of this jettison started with the Xbox One, and it hasn't finished. They continue to do it. This is sort of in line with when I said they're making the same mistake again this time around where they're targeting non-gamers, and I don't think it's going to work very well for them. Like with the whole TV thing, TV, that was them saying, let's go for a larger market share. Let's go for people who aren't gamers. We'll sell an all-in-one entertainment box. And again, I've given them credit in this regard. They were kind of ahead of the curve because everything they tried to sell you is now just automatic in a smart TV. Like, that's just where we landed. And it took a while. Like, they were basically a little too early. And it made everybody feel like, well, why would I want a device that has to be all online all the time? Now nobody bats an eye at that. It's like, you basically, if you want to consume entertainment in the digital age, you need to be connected to the internet basically all of the time. And thank you, Force of Will, for 23 months. How do I use my Amazon Prime thing on Purple? Also, thanks for the great content. Go over there and then use the Prime command. And thank you, Force of Will, for also gifting a member a perfect little setup there for another 20 bomb. We are now exactly 20 members away from the next milestone. At 50, I gift the members to whoever hits the milestone. So, Purple, this is your chance to steal and get back in the fight. It's 28-2. And or YouTube could just take it again. We'll see what happens. I wish I would have figured this out sooner. Oh, I mean, I don't know if, quote unquote, they could have figured this out sooner. I think the trajectory was set with I believe the trajectory was set with the Xbox One, and they're still sort of reeling from that trajectory where they targeted so strongly non-gamers. I think it just put them on a path of that hasn't worked very well for them, and this is now their destination. Their destination is, we're not going to make hardware anymore. We're going to function largely as a publisher / ecosystem. And the funny thing is they're not even really building like the ecosystem that I think a lot of people pictured. It's like gaming is now going to be an extension of Windows. It's like Windows is this giant monster that's sort of absorbing gaming, and an arm of Windows will be whatever this Windows 11 stripped down OS is. And again, this could be good or bad depending on how you look at it. It's nothing that I wanted. I wanted them to fight. I wanted them to push and, deliver on what the vision they cast for this gen. If you guys are watching on YouTube, do me a real quick favor and double check that you've smashed the like button. We are starting earlier, okay? So we have a chance to really build some momentum in this first hour. We're going live at 10 a.m. Eastern. We're now going live at 9 a.m. Eastern. So instead of doing morning coffee, we just go live. So you're getting the same amount of content, but we've just decided that morning coffee was too disruptive to the morning flow. You got distracted with a Balatro run? Well, I'm glad you're here now. The problem wasn't the TV thing. It was having to connect to the online all the time. I mean, it was a cascade of things, Garrett. I mean, it certainly was the TV focus. A lot of gamers didn't respond positively to that. It was the higher price point, and the Connect was not optional, and then it was needing to be online all the time. It was sort of a hat trick of misfires, right? It was a hat trick of misfires. It was like, oh my gosh, you're completely out of touch with what gamers want, and they very much overplayed their hand. They thought, well, we're Microsoft after all. Like, we're just going to go get more customers by offering more stuff. Mince Tree with 46 months says, it seems to me some Xbox content creators just want to say that they were playing PlayStation games on an Xbox, therefore PlayStation went third party, therefore they followed the Xbox strategy, therefore Xbox better. Listen, I don't want to get lost in the weeds of what I consider to be intentional obfuscation and dishonesty. I would just rather fly above all that and just say, listen, can we have an actual conversation? Which is why I have said, that's fine if you want to call it that. If you want to say, oh, this is an Xbox. Okay, fine. But that also then means PCs are Xboxes too, because you can do the same thing on a PC, okay? You can do the exact same things because you got a handheld PC and then you got your PCs, right? So if those are all Xboxes now, how are you differentiating them? Because they have different capabilities. You can't do everything on your PC that you can do on your Xbox. You can't access that backwards compat library. You can't access your entire library, right? And same goes for the handheld. So that's fine. Call it an Xbox. Okay, cool, fine. It's an Xbox. Now, how are you going to differentiate between them so that consumers are properly informed about functionality and what they're able to do? Like, does anybody feel a sense of responsibility at all to the people that follow them on Twitter, read their articles, or consume their videos? Do you feel any sense of responsibility for accurately informing those people about what this device is and what it's capable of? Or is something else going on here? Because to me, it feels like something else is going on here. I touch on this in my video coming later today, okay? I touch on this in my video coming later today, where, to me, this feels really, really reactionary, right? It feels very reactionary. The consumer, the lack of consumer confidence in Xbox from a hardware perspective is at an all-time low. And this feels like an all-hands-on-deck, 4-scale alarm. It's an effort to, again, I think the effort is to confuse the public and to create this cloud of, well, we don't really know what this is. We don't really know what this thing's even capable of. We just keep getting told that it's an Xbox. Oh, and then it can play PlayStation games. Game Pass on PS5 Pro when? I don't think that Game Pass would ever end up on PlayStation because PlayStation wouldn't want it and Xbox wouldn't want it. Xbox has no desire to do that. Xbox makes way more money selling Call of Duty on PlayStation as opposed to giving people Game Pass over there. And PlayStation would have the exact same attitude. PlayStation would say, no, we're not interested in that. We make way more money selling your games and taking 30% than we would make off of getting people to sign up for Game Pass. It would be completely counterproductive for both. You talk about mutual destruction of profit. That's what would happen if they did that. So that would not happen. Thrash pointed out when they started doing the TV stuff with the Kinect on the 360, them doing the software since the start, there was no Kinect for the 360. What are you talking about? Did they make a version of the Kinect for the 360 that I'm unaware of? I thought it was just on the Xbox One. Or did you mistype? If you can't sell your console with games, try doing it with lies and propaganda. Listen, I'm trying to avoid the inflammatory language, but from where I sit and the observations that I've been making is Kinect 1 was the 360. I don't remember that. It started on the 360. I got an Xbox One and the Kinect came with it, and I used that camera to stream. I don't think I ever saw a 360 with a Kinect. Like, in my circles, we all just had the normal 360 and we just played Call of Duty. What did you use it for? How many games were there for it? Xbox 360 Kinect? I remember using my Kinect on my Xbox One. I do not remember the 360 Kinect. Oh, yes. It was like this rounded bar with 3 openings on it. I do remember this. I do. I was in the white. I bought my 360 bundled with World at War, and it was like white. Didn't this come out? I feel like this came out later. Yeah, I seriously completely forgot that there was a Kinect for the 360. I just remembered it on the Xbox One because I used it to start streaming. I was like, oh, this will actually work out. I didn't play any of the games. I just used it to start streaming. It wasn't forced on you like the Xbox One. I was not a super plugged-in gamer back then. I bought my 360, and I just played World at War and Gears of War with my buddies. Like, that's all I did. I did not pay any attention to, like, conversations about gaming. I don't think I looked up videos or guides or anything back then. I just literally bought my 360. It's a couple of my guy friends at AT&T. We were like, yo, let's get these 360s. They come with Call of Duty and let's play. And then I never went to the store for peripherals. I was just like, oh, sweet, I'm playing Call of Duty. And that's largely all I played up until Destiny. I was just a COD head. This is your king. Back then, seriously. So that was when I first got married. And that would have been, what was that? So when I bought it, we were in our first apartment. I had a projection TV, and I bought the 360. That would have been 2007. So that was almost 20 years ago. He was a green guy. Well, no, I really wasn't. I was a Nintendo, then I was a PC, and then I came back to Xbox with the 360 because I couldn't play Gears of War on my computer, and I couldn't play Call of Duty 4 on my computer. And I was like, I don't want to do this again. I didn't want to upgrade my equipment. So I bought the 360. And from that point on, I was heavily invested with my Xbox library. I completely forgot that 360 had a Kinect because me and my friends, we didn't pay any attention to this stuff. We just played Call of Duty. I played basically every Call of Duty up until Black Ops 3. Yeah. And then when the Xbox One came out, I didn't even look at, back then, I didn't watch the E3 presentation. I had no idea that there was controversy about the Xbox One. I had no idea. I bought my Xbox One. It came with the camera. I remember setting it up in my basement, and I remember the camera literally was off to the side on a table. I didn't even use it until I started streaming. And then I remember, I distinctly remember like pulling it up and having to like dust it off. And then I set it up on top of the, I had like a tower, like an old computer tower. It was an old Asus black and gray tower. And I set the camera up on top of the tower so that it could point down at me for my streams. So even on the Xbox One, I was not plugged in as a gamer. I had no idea that people were angry. I had no idea that people were upset about the price point. I had no idea that like people were angry about always online or the Kinect. I was completely disconnected at that point. I did not really get plugged into like gaming commentary around like YouTube and stuff. Not until Destiny. When I played Destiny 1, I remember I watched Angry Joe's video about Destiny 1, and that's what made me want to start creating content. I started blogging about games after seeing his Destiny 1 review, because it was like therapeutic to hear somebody scream and yell about all of the stuff that, you know, why are you putting that in my chat? I just take the week off. People, I don't even want to hear that kind of nonsense from people like you. Just want to bring up something controversial, I guess. There it is. There's your 15 seconds of attention from me. But yeah, I didn't pay any attention to gaming commentary, gaming YouTube, none of that until Destiny. Because when Destiny rolled around, I wanted to know what was happening. I wanted to know what was coming. I remember seeing the trailer for Destiny and being like, man, this game looks sick. And from that point on, I was tuned into what was going on in gaming, like as far as like consuming YouTube and like listening to what people had to say. How did everyone forget the fact that Xbox One was $100 more but weaker than the PS4? Yeah, but see, I didn't know any of that back then. I didn't pay any attention to it. I didn't even know that the 360 had a Kinect because I didn't consume the media. I didn't consume the commercials. I didn't like go to the store and browse the Xbox aisle. I bought a 360 with World at War and then I never thought about it again. I didn't even know. Again, I had no idea that people were angry and upset about the Xbox One. I just bought it because that's what I had. I had a 360. I bought an Xbox One. That's what I did. I didn't pay any attention to that stuff back then. If you used gaming forums or anything, it was everywhere. Yeah, I was very disconnected from all of that. I didn't even realize that today, in this era of time, that people were like console warring. I had no idea. I remember when I first started covering this gen, and I forget what we were talking about. I remember we were talking about the ZeniMax acquisition, and I said we were breaking down an interview, and I remember saying it very much sounds like they want to make Elder Scrolls and all these games exclusives. And that might have been the first time I noticed in my chat people were just going at it about one side versus the other. And I was like, huh? I was like, what is going on? Because you got to remember, I was a Destiny guy for 5 years, and that's all I really consumed was the game of Destiny, the community of Destiny, the conversations around Destiny. I had both consoles. I went to the Destiny 2 premiere. It wasn't like alarming that the lanyards had the PS4 Pro logo on them. It wasn't alarming that like PlayStation was blazoned everywhere. It was just, that was just kind of normal. Like they were the ones that had like the exclusivity deals and stuff. And I was still primarily playing on the Xbox then. So I remember being annoyed that we didn't get certain strikes in Destiny because they were exclusive to PlayStation. So, yeah. I didn't know people still console war. No, yeah. So, like, I had no idea. So this is the thing is, you know, I've had people come in here and they'll like, or they'll leave a comment and they'll like call me a tourist or whatever. And I'm like, to a certain degree, I was never like a big like capital G gamer and like on forums and on YouTube. I was never like that. And I only got more plugged into this world because of Destiny. because that was the best way to know what was going on. There was a time where Destiny Bungie would let you leave comments on their blog posts. Do you guys remember that? And I used the app on my phone, and I would go and leave comments and get in discussions with people about the game on their blog posts. So that was like the catalyst, like me getting into coverage and watching E3 every year and the PlayStation showcases and the Xbox showcases. I always liked the Xbox showcases more. I always thought they were the best. And so I would say the last 5 years, I've ramped up, obviously, my, looking into things or watching things and analyzing coverage and thinking about, the various aspects of gamer culture and gaming. But and this is why I think one of the detriments of people who get kind of sucked into live service games is you don't get to really experience or see anything else that's going on. So because I was basically 5 years of the last 10 years of my, content creation journey, 5 of those years, largely not head in the sand like ignorant, just head in the sand oblivious to the rest of the gaming world, because I was just Destiny. If people were upset about something in Destiny, I knew every jot, line, and tittle about that topic. I knew everything. If it was an Eververse debate, a Battle Pass debate, a DLC debate, a season debate, whatever, I was extremely tuned into that. Yo, what's good, Feed? I see you in the chat. But as far as like Xbox versus PlayStation and the term pony, like all that stuff, I had never heard anything like that before in my life. And it wasn't until we started covering the Activision Blizzard deal that it started coming up. And I had people calling me a pony. I'm like, I remember saying that one day. I was like, I don't know what that is. I don't know why you're saying that. And I mean, I knew that we had really pro Xbox guys in our chat, because I used to interact with them in a way where we were in agreement. And I kept saying, Xbox is a sleeping giant, and they've got this strategy where they're blurring the line between PC and console, and I think it's going to pay off for them. Well, I don't think that. I argue in today's video, I got a video coming later today, I think this is all going to backfire. I think the efforts to obfuscate and the efforts to confuse the public, the efforts to like blur the line and call everything an Xbox, and this thing that people are now doing with this handheld, I think it's going to backfire, because I don't think consumers are going to take very kindly to it. That's the thing, Lona. The console wars of the past were never this toxic. I think it got even worse last gen. It's been intensifying dramatically recently. Maybe that's why I never saw it, True SSJ Havoc, because I remember when my community bought me a PS4 so they could play Destiny with me, nobody was angry, upset, or toxic or console warring about that. You know what I mean? It's a good history. Now we all know how you got put on. I thought you knew about console wars. No. And this is why I think some people think I'm unfamiliar with stuff. I'll be like, oh yeah, I never played those games. And they'll be like long-standing PlayStation games. Or I'll completely forget that the 360 had a Kinect because I didn't pay any attention to it. Like, I've seen the pictures. I recognized it when I saw it. But it was completely out of the frame for me as a gamer back then, because I didn't pay any attention to this stuff. I just played Call of Duty with my buds. And then we started playing Borderlands. But largely, I never paid any attention to this stuff until Destiny rolled around. And even then, that was a very different time, because that was me looking into coverage about a particular game, not like gaming at wide, like gaming as a whole. Yo, thank you, Vix Baber, for 9 months over here on Purple. If you guys are watching on YouTube, do me a favor and smash that like button. And the member battle has calmed down after Friday. On Friday, Purple won handedly, but this week, or today, it's seeming they're conceding. Get the count to 200, says Bronco. You guys are being cheered on in the YouTube chat to get the like count up. We are nearing our normal start time at 10 o'clock. So this is sort of the beginning on-ramp to the show. So get the likes up. Let's try to have 200 before we get through the first hour of the show. Who knew it would spread as much as it did? Shout out to Next Gen 720 for the Sony Pony tagline. Oh, is that the person who coined the phrase? I don't know the origin of of Sony Pony. Yeah. Well, and then this situation with the handheld, I'm seeing a lot of commentary and a lot of statements about, well, you're mad and you're angry and you're salty. Oh, there's so much salt over this. And I find this to be irritating when you say something in a way that is designed to get corrected. And then when you get corrected, you call the correction salt. So like if I said right now that this was a living cat, and you guys are like, no, it's not. And I'm like, I don't know why you guys are so salty. Like that's essentially the conversation that was taking place. It was make a blatantly, provably false claim. This is a cat. It's alive and in my hand right now. And when you guys are like, no, it's not. And then I say, well, I don't know why you're salty. I guess you're jealous of my cat. Like, that's basically the conversation that has transpired over the weekend. Like, make a false claim, get corrected on false claim, project onto the correction emotional frustration, salt, and anger. Like, can we just have an actual conversation about the device instead of whatever this other thing is? Like, I don't know. I don't know what it is that people think they're doing. I don't know what it is that they think they're achieving. But it's just an exercise in foolishness. Like, we're not communicating. We're not communicating. That's why I said, okay, fine. Fine. It's easier to just concede. It's an Xbox. Now my question is, how are you going to differentiate between the various Xboxes that are out there? Because right now, if you tell somebody, oh yes, this is an Xbox, that's not communicating anything. You're just, and again, this is where I agree with Laura Fryer, it's just marketing. You're just parroting marketing. Okay, go deeper than just the marketing. What exactly are you trying to communicate? What is the Xbox Asus ROG Ally X? What is it? What's its capabilities? And the reason this is important is so that the consumer is properly informed so that if they buy it, they know what they're buying. Right? Like, I can call a bicycle a motorcycle, and when you come to purchase it from me, you're going to be pretty ticked off that I've been calling a bicycle a motorcycle. Well, what, man? Anything. I call everything with two wheels a motorcycle. I mean, look at that over there. That's a really nice motorcycle that guy's standing on. Well, no, that's a scooter. No, but I call everything with two wheels a motorcycle. Do you see? It's like you can call it that. Oh, okay, fine. We don't need to get into an endless debate about what you're allowed to call something. But you need to be able to properly communicate what the device can do so that then consumers are clearly aware of whatever the value proposition is, so that if they purchase it, the value transmission is complete and accurate. This is the problem with video games that are promoted in a way that make it look like one thing and then they deliver another. Right? And then everybody gets really angry. And they should. Like what happened with Mind's Eye. $2 super chat from J Hart. It has 4 legs, so it's a cat. It actually has a lot more than 4 legs. Thank you for the $2 super chat. Hero Shade, thank you so much for becoming a member here. There is a segment every day called the Green Room, and you need to be at Member Plus to be a part of the Green Room. So you don't want to pick Member Lite. Member Lite is designed for gifting members. If you upgrade, I'll let you double dip. All upgrades count as 2. Everybody right now should check their membership and make sure you're at Member Plus. You also should check and make sure that you have pressed the like button. We need 20 more likes. Make sure you have done that. It helps this video find more folks. It probably hurts Xbox more because they have emphasized backwards compatibility for so long. Eugene says, just like the meta question, 3 is a special edition. Oh, the Meta Quest 3 is a special edition. Is Series S and Series X also something that calls into question what is an Xbox? This again, in my video today, it's going to be a long video. It's long. It's not short. I went very freeform with it. It's a very different style of video. It's a style of video I've been wanting to make for a while, where I just go more conversational, right? Now, in the video today, I argue that this is going to backfire. It is going to backfire because okay, so think about what this is going to do. If you succeed in your efforts, you're only going to anger the people that still trust you. I'm going to say that again very carefully. If you are successful, and when I say if you are successful, so the people that are getting on podcasts, YouTube channels, Twitter feeds, writing articles, okay, they're the ones sort of running PR for the device, and so is Xbox. So if Xbox or all of you who are essentially an extension of Xbox marketing, okay, if you're all successful in making people think this device is an Xbox that has greater capabilities than it really does, it's just going to backfire. You will destroy any remaining trust people have, because they will say, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Like, it'll be over. They'll be like, I'm not doing this again. You did it one more time. You got me to buy into some piece of hardware, and I misunderstood its capabilities, and that was by design. Eugene says, it's a special edition ROG. That's it. That's all. Any commentary otherwise is a denial of reality. Oh, you're saying it's like the Meta Quest. It's just a special edition. Right. So, to a certain extent, I have a vested interest in letting it continue. Right? Think about it. Fast forward 3 years from now. Do you think people that are trusting these claims, these tweets, these articles, these videos, these podcasts, do you think people are going to trust them more or less as the dust settles on this? Just think about it. Like, if you're successful right now and you are tricking people into thinking, oh, it's an Xbox. Yeah, it's an Xbox and it can play PlayStation games. Is delay higher today? I'm at low latency. Yeah, I'm at low latency, Zuby. It could be just how I'm reading chat. It's possible it's on me. I mean, maybe I'm just reading things after they're in chat for a while. Somebody on YouTube can do a latency test. I would be so mad if they kept lying to me for years and then dumping us at the end. You're never leaving? I mean, you might not have a choice. Right? You might not have a choice. I just want my new Halo. Again, I think it'll backfire. You're underestimating the stupidity of the human race? No. In the realm of consumers being told that's what it was, you're usually quicker to grab comments. Yeah. You won't have a choice as creature when they're sell nothing. What are you going to do? Yeah, but again, in the realm of this conversation, that's why I was able to just be like, I wasn't even going to get in a fight with people about it on Twitter. I was like, there's no reason to fight, because it's like, I stated my side of it. I corrected what I felt was a dishonest tweet. And then that was the end of my contribution to the conversation on Twitter, because it's like, you know what? The information is right here and readily available for people to be informed. If they refuse to be informed and they allow themselves to get misled, this will all fix itself in time. I think with enough time, the bad actors will be, I think, trusted less and less. Like, you got to think about the more average, more drive-by consumer. Okay, think about me prior to Destiny. Didn't really know that people were angry about the Xbox One. I didn't really know that people were upset about the Kinect and the always online and the price. I didn't even remember that there was a Kinect for the 360. I was super disconnected back then, okay? It would have been very easy to mislead me. It would have been really easy to mislead me. One YouTube video from somebody who I thought was a trusted source could have said something like, yep, this is an Xbox and it can play PlayStation games. And I'd be like, yo, that sounds sick. I'm going to get that. I'm going to buy that. Now, this fixes itself once it's in the hands of the consumer, because they're going to realize, wait a minute, this is just a device that was already available. My friend has one of these. It's just an Asus ROG Ally X. I'm just opening up Steam games. This isn't even really an Xbox. It doesn't. You were very disconnected. I think a lot of gamers are like that. I think the vast majority of gamers are like that. I just don't think they're paying attention to that stuff. It's like, if you're happy to go to the store and to buy your Nintendo, Xbox, or PlayStation and bring it home and just play games, you got to think about how many people play video games every day and never come to YouTube, and they never hop on. They come to YouTube, but they don't come to YouTube to consume gaming content. That's just, I'm serious. We are a smaller group in the grand scheme of things. The larger group are the people that don't do those things. They just play games. And at some level, I think sometimes I'm jealous of that. They don't have to worry about this. Grub said what he said on his channel. I hear him. Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Somebody said something earlier about what Grub said. What exactly did Grub say? Can somebody repost it or reclaim or restate it? I missed that. The overwhelming vast majority of gamers do not pay attention to any of the stuff that's going on in the social media space. Yeah, this is true. And that's why I think this problem will fix itself. There's a small part of me, I'll be honest with you. I'll be totally transparent. There's a part of me that sees people capitalizing on the situation, and I think it's a form of dishonesty. I think they're misrepresenting the product. I think they're making it hard for people to see the forest for the trees. There's a part of me that cheers them on in it, because I know what it'll do to them and their brand. I know what it'll do to their trustworthiness. I'm like, keep going. You'll get what's coming to you eventually. You know what I mean? You almost cheer for it. There's a part of me that cheers for it. I'm like, yeah, keep doing that. Keep doing that. And in 2 or 3 years, when more and more people realize that you've been saying things that are not accurate, it'll be a pretty big shift, I think. There's already a shift. I mean, I feel like you can already kind of feel it. I think people are kind of sick of it. I've always had my finger on the pulse, says Snake Eyes, but my friends are very disconnected and just have fun playing games and listening to what others tell them. I'm heard PC handheld. I'm not sure what you're saying, 187. Feels like a cult leader. I mean, I don't like to invoke cult, but I definitely cult as in a cult leader. I don't like invoking that. I definitely liked him and always felt like, oh man, he's a great front man. Back in the day, I always loved their showcases. I can confirm I don't have to open any other store to play my Steam library from my Xbox app. It's nice. All my games in one app. So if the new Xbox can do that, I'm all in. Not for PlayStation games, but for my Steam games. Yeah, Grim, And I think that is exactly who this is intended for. That's who it's intended for. And I think you probably even know this. I mean, I would think you would agree with this. I think most people in your situation would agree with this. I don't think you're a huge portion of the market. Somebody that's like, I have a huge Xbox library. Well, I'll just say a library. I have an Xbox library and a Steam library, and I really want them combined in a handheld. I think that there are people like you. I don't think you're this enormous group. And that's why I think this feels like a compensation. This feels like the confidence in the hardware hit an all-time low, and this is an overreaction to that. They are attempting to dress this up as something bigger than it is, right? I want you to imagine, let's just do a thought experiment. I want you to imagine that you are not plugged into gaming at all, but you are looking to sort of invest, okay? You're wanting to invest in something, and you're looking at gaming. And you look at the trajectory of Xbox hardware, and you see the reports, and you see the headlines, and you're analyzing the earnings calls and everything else, and you come to the conclusion that Xbox's hardware is performing poorly. Again, you are from the outside in. Minch Tree, it grabbed your question. I don't know why it told you there was an error. It worked, so you don't need to resubmit. Okay, so let's just say you've just come to that very basic conclusion that like Xbox hardware isn't selling well. You're seeing that evidenced by the reports as well as just by like headlines and public response. And you come to that conclusion. You're like, okay, it's not selling well. And then you see a trailer for the Xbox ROG Ally X. And you, at this point in time, are now fully educated on gaming hardware. So there's the Steam Deck, there's the ROG Ally, the ROG Ally X, the Lenovo Go, there's the Switch 2, PlayStation 5 and Pro, Series X and S. So you're aware of all these pieces of hardware. And you start seeing commentary about an Xbox ROG Ally X where people are declaring it as the future, and that yes, this is a game changer, and yes, this is an Xbox. I would imagine that from the outside looking in, you would say this is nothing. This is already in the market. This isn't even being made by Xbox. This is a device that you can buy right now that hasn't saturated the market in a huge number. This is not like a Switch 2, or like a PlayStation or something where there's like tens upon tens of millions being sold. I think that you would sort of maybe even find it humorous that people are describing it in this way. You'd be like, I don't understand. Where is this coming from? This device feels like a non-starter. Like if you come from the outside just looking in, you wouldn't be compelled by any of this. It seems to only work when you tap into sort of the remnant of the war, like the console war, like the remnant of that platform allegiance. It only really gets traction in those circles. Like in other circles, the average person would look at this and be like just a tech analyst website or YouTuber would be like, this isn't really going to do much. It's a device that's already in the market, and they have not shown themselves to be pieces of hardware in high demand. Do you see what I'm saying? Like if you just do a thought experiment and you just analyze this from the outside looking in, a lot of the dialogue around this only gets traction because of the console war. Like, don't get it twisted. Like, showing an Xbox app open a PlayStation game that's in Steam, that was intended to do what it did. It was intended to frustrate people with the dishonesty and the bad framing and how it was misleading and obfuscating to be like, well, we've proven you can load PlayStation games on an Xbox. This is simply untrue. This is false. But it was designed to do what it did. It stoked the fires once again. And when people are then critical and say, well, you're misleading people, the response is, I don't know why everybody's so salty and angry. I mean, maybe people are fed up. I mean, that would be my estimation. I think people are fed up with the dishonesty. I think people are fed up with opinions that sound an awful lot like marketing. It's like that. Of course, people are expressing frustration with what you're doing. But you did that by design. It's like going into a library and screaming really, really loudly, and when everybody goes, shh, you're like, geez, everybody's so sensitive in this library. It's like, well, no, you did something intended to get that result. Like this was all designed to provoke irritation and correction from people. So then you can turn back around and villainize them and say, oh, well, you're attacking me and you're salty and you're console warring. And it's like, I know, okay. Good luck in the grand scheme of things. Good luck. I think people are tired of obfuscation and dishonesty, and I think they're tired of false frames. Those things all have expiration dates. Like, try as you might, you will eventually the veil falls, and people are like, wait a minute. I mean, what in the world? You guys kept saying this stuff, and you guys kept doing this stuff, and you guys kept promoting this stuff, and none of this is how we thought it was going to play out. None of this is what we thought it was going to be. The game changers that Steam is getting competition from Xbox. Well, play that out for me. How do you think? How do you think that is? How do you think the Steam's getting competition? Steam, from where I sit, is getting to land in more places and make more money. I don't understand how is that competitive? The handheld will come and be celebrated as a success, allowing Phil to come out and say, its success made us reevaluate making our own hardware. We're handing off our new console to the experts in hardware while we concentrate on the games, which is what matters. Johnny, I think that's a pretty solid prediction. I don't know if they'll use this handheld as their exit. I think they'll say that, we feel a better relationship is to have the guys that excel at hardware make hardware, and the guys that excel at software make software, and that's what we're good at. We're good at software. We're going to focus on the games. Like you're saying, games are what matters. Yeah, I could see them saying that. I think people are too hung up on an Xbox needing to be exclusively a console that solely plays Xbox games. I don't think it needs to solely play Xbox games, but I think if you're going to call it an Xbox, it needs to play Xbox games. That seems reasonable, right? I don't think that's unreasonable. You guys keep calling this an Xbox, and yet it lacks the basic functionality of an Xbox. You can continue to call a bicycle a motorcycle. It doesn't make it a motorcycle. It doesn't matter how many times you say it. They are working on that. Okay, so if I'm adding over time pieces and parts to a bicycle to make it a motorcycle, it's not a motorcycle until it's a dadgum motorcycle, brother. Like, that's why this is just such an exercise in foolishness. It's just foolish from the top to the bottom. It is not in its present form. It is not an Xbox. When you have to put like 8 asterisks next to it to quantify what it can and can't do, why not just call it what it is? It's a Windows 11 gaming device. What's wrong with that? That's a very accurate descriptor. So then the consumer knows exactly what they're buying. Like, they know what they're buying. Hang on. What's at the door? I can't come up right now. The future of gaming is Windows, not Xbox. Right, and that's why, to me, it's fine to call it a Windows 11 gaming device. I think that's totally fine. It's an accurate descriptor. It's like, well, that's what it is, and that describes its capabilities. Windows 11 gaming device with Xbox software. But it also has Steam software on it. Like, you can all... Do you see what I'm saying? Windows 11 gaming device describes its capabilities almost perfectly. Like, okay, that gives you a lot of options. You can install Steam. You can install this Xbox app on it. It's got great capabilities. Within that category, it's got great capabilities for the people that are looking for that. Thank you for the $5 super chat tip from J Hart. Microsoft is trying to defend Windows from Steam OS, but best case scenario is maintaining the status quo of a Windows stranglehold on PC. Have you asked yourself what's an Xbox these days? I'm trying to think of an analogy. So, like, hang on a second. He didn't look familiar. Well, they can just email me an invoice. They don't need to come to the house to charge me. Just email me an invoice and I'll pay you. That's so bizarre. Maybe they do business a little bit differently, but like the roofer doesn't need to come back to my home to charge me money. You can just send me an invoice. I mean, unless they have like a Square that they want to use and they want to swipe a credit card. I mean, that's fine, but you got to schedule that. You can't just like show up. Like, if I had a traditional job, I wouldn't be here. I'd be in an office somewhere. Somebody is going to put Steam OS on the Xbox, and I'll be very amused. Possible. They can't call it Windows because it's not an Xbox, and they can't console war. So now it's childish and stupid, even though they'll be the first to cheer for an Xbox W. Is my MacBook a Windows PC because it has Microsoft Office on it? I think not. Yeah, I'm trying to think of a good analogy here of why it's really confusing to change not change the name. You sort of change the usage of a term, or in this case, it's a word. So, okay, let's just jump into a completely other different category, and let's say iPhone. Okay, if Apple decided to say anything that can use, let's say that they made an application that allowed you to use their FaceTime thing on other devices, and they said everything's an iPhone now. That would be, again, that creates confusion because you're buying something that's not an iPhone, and yet they're claiming, oh, no, that's an iPhone. And you're like, oh, okay, so will I have access to all of my iCloud backup and my apps and everything I had on my previous iPhone? Oh, no, you won't have any of that because you're buying an Android, but it's an iPhone. You'd be like, wait, okay, hang on a second. So it's an iPhone, but it's not an iPhone, so why are you even bothering calling it that? You've just now wasted time, and you've confused me. And as the consumer, that's not a good thing to do. One of the worst things you can do, one of the worst things you can do is to confuse the consumer. If you confuse the consumer, you're increasing the likelihood of frustration. So if you sell somebody, an Android phone, and you're like, but this is an iPhone, And they're like, well, okay, so it's going to have all the iPhone capabilities? No. And then they get home and they're like, well, they told me it was an iPhone and they could do some of the capabilities and some not. And then they have to figure out which ones it can do and which ones it can't. You've just increased the likelihood of frustration, because frustration happens when unmet expectations is where frustration stems from. Your friend said they would be, bringing over, pizza to eat, and they come over with vegan steaks, right? It's time for a new friend. It's time for a new friend. Okay? So, but again, you'd be very frustrated because the expectation was they were going to bring pizzas and they brought something completely different that nobody wants. And now people are frustrated, and it's even worse because they're hungry, right? So you're just increasing the likelihood of frustration with the consumer. So telling somebody this is an Xbox to win points in some weird fight that, people think is worth having. It's like, okay, fine. You can call it that. You know what I hope? I hope they're successful. I do. I hope the people running with this successfully trick their audiences and fool them, so that when they buy the device, they see this all for what it was. That's like best case scenario. The true balancing to this situation is for it to effectively work, and for a bunch of people that sub to the channels or follow these people or read their articles or read their takes, successfully duping them into thinking that this is something that it's not. That's like best case scenario, because then they're going to get the device and they're going to realize that they have been misled. That would be horrible for them to waste their money and then find out they got scammed. No, they just return it. They would just return it. You just take it back. You just take it back to the store and get your money back. This is why I think we should be able to return anything you buy digitally, video games in particular. If you buy a digital video game, very simply, you go to the storefront on your console and you click buy. It installs it. You play for 30 minutes and you're like, this is a broken piece of trash. You should be able to go right back to the storefront and say refund. You should be able to do that. Why? It protects the consumer. It protects you from having those unmet expectations from somebody putting out a trailer or promoting a game, and then the thing they deliver is nothing like it. You can do that with hardware. Now, there might be a restocking fee, right? So that would be the biggest bummer, is that if somebody got misled and then they basically are out the restocking fee. I believe when we looked into this, it's a 14-day return policy at most of the locations, and you get all of your money back, full refund. There is no restocking fee currently on these handhelds. So the trap card here is that if anybody's going to try to say, oh man, Reforge, you're really out of line there. You're saying it would be good for people to be tricked. No. I'm saying it would be good for people to trust you. Don't you want to be trusted? Aren't you right? I mean, you're right and I'm wrong. You're correct and I'm wrong. It's an Xbox. And people should trust you. I'm cheering for them to trust you. I hope that they do. I hope that they see your tweets and your battles and your fights. I hope they see it, and I hope they trust you, and I hope they align with you. So then they buy it. That's the best thing that could happen. Oh wait, would that be bad? Well, if that would be a bad thing, then aren't you admitting that you shouldn't be trusted? Aren't you admitting then that customers and people are being misled? That's a trap card. It's designed that way. It's designed that way. I'm either wrong and it's an Xbox, or I'm wrong and I shouldn't be cheering them on and I shouldn't be saying, oh, people should trust them. So you have to choose, which is it? I mean, you know, we can play these little silly games on Twitter. I mean, I'm not interested in that. I'm not interested in that. I hope people trust your obfuscation and your shenanigans. I hope people trust your declarations that this is the future. I hope they trust you. It's it's what you deserve. It'd be the best thing for you. It'd be great. In a couple of years, people will have some choice words for you. As all of this meets out, all of this is going to continue to transform in ways that makes it clear that much has been said that is not accurate. A lot. And I would much rather tell somebody, I am selling a bicycle, and then they buy the bicycle and they're happy with their bicycle. So just say it's a Windows 11 gaming device with an Xbox button and an Xbox app on it, and these are its capabilities, so that when somebody buys it, they bring it home and it's the bicycle. It's what was it was properly described to them. Like that's all that why would anybody not want that to happen? What's the matter with that? Why would you be against that? Let's do a parallel. Do you guys remember the PlayStation Portal? Do you remember when people were falsely reporting that you could only use it when you were at home? Do you remember that? Isn't it interesting? It's so interesting. It's like intentionally covering something, misrepresenting it to seem like its usage is very limited. And then when we're on the other side of the coin and you're talking about something from the Xbox team, you talk about it in ways where you're vaguely implying it's got capabilities beyond what it can actually do. Isn't that interesting? I think that's interesting. Those are just strange coincidences. That the runway to the Portal coming out had people claiming falsely, yeah, you can only use it when you're at home, which isn't true. It's a remote play device that you can use with the internet anywhere, as long as your PlayStation is plugged into the internet and in standby mode, you can use it. Portal sucks. I think it's great. You don't have to like it. I love mine, and it has outsold all their expectations, so seemingly consumers are responding pretty strongly to it. So to me, it's just a strange coincidence that we had people trying to misrepresent and minimize what the Portal is capable of doing, and now we're on the other side of the coin, and there's a handheld coming from Asus with an Xbox logo on it, and it's being described in ways that vaguely creates this cloud of confusion about it's going to have greater capabilities than it actually has. It's going to backfire. It's going to backfire. Consumers will not respond kindly to that. They will respond rather angrily to that. Well, I thought this thing was an Xbox. The Portal is $200 to say it sucks. You're just out lying. Well, I don't think he's lying. I mean, somebody could think that it sucks. I would be curious as to why they think it sucks. For what it offers, it's a great device. I mean, it's the price of an Elite controller. And it's a remote play and now cloud device. That's not bad for $200. I don't get it, man. That's a nice little device. And the more they add to that cloud list of games that you can play, that value just keeps going up, because that list will just continue to grow. It's in the name, Portal. You know what's interesting, too? You know what's interesting about the Portal is that it can actually play all my PlayStation games remotely, but I can still do it. It's more of a PlayStation. It's more of a PlayStation than the ROG Ally is an Xbox. I mean, if we're going to be honest about like their capabilities, one of them actually, you know, people would push back and say, well, you can remote play all your Xbox games. I know. I'm just being cheeky. I'm not being serious. My wife recently moved from Switch to PlayStation. She loves the Portal. Can you play the Portal when someone's using the PS5? No. Well, you would be able to use cloud, but you'd probably have to have the PlayStation be offline, because I don't think you can use, if you're trying to use the exact same account, you're going to kick the other person out. So if I boot up the PlayStation 5 and I'm playing on my account and I'm not plugged into the internet, you could boot up the Portal and play cloud games. You would not be able to remote play because I'm using the device. Does that make sense? You're either going to remotely control a PlayStation or you're going to play cloud games. And if you're playing the cloud games, you're actively using the internet and your profile. So the PlayStation at home could not be online using your profile. You can't do that. Like if my son is playing Fortnite and he plays on my profile, I would kick him out of Fortnite if I loaded up a game. It depends if you have accounts. The home PS5 could be played on another local account. This is true. You could boot up my PlayStation 5 and use Madam's account to play online, and then I could be on the Portal with my account playing on the cloud. I would not be able to remote play on the PS5 because she would be using it. Does that make sense? You forgot that the Portal was $700 because you have to buy a PS5. Well, that's still cheaper. $450 for the PS5 digital, and then the Portal is $200. That's $650. That's still cheaper than the ROG Ally X. I have the best Wi-Fi and connected to Ethernet. What do you mean by you have the best Wi-Fi? What are you attempting to communicate by saying that? Do you have to buy a PS5 now with the updates? I'm not sure what you're asking. Oh, no, you could buy a Portal and not own a PlayStation 5. You would only be able to play the cloud games. Yes, you could do that. You would have to buy the Portal for $200, sign up for the PS Plus that comes with cloud, and then use it as a cloud gaming device. You would be limited to, I don't know what the number of games is now. They added some recently, so I'm not sure what the total count is. You can just live off a premium, basically. Yeah. I could actually see somebody doing that if they're constantly traveling and commuting, but they have fast internet wherever they go. I could see somebody doing that for the $200. That's not bad at all if you're going to play games. Now, obviously, I don't think you're going to want to play games where, you know, you've got like really tight iframe windows and really fast combat. That's not the best environment for cloud play. Like, I was playing Inscription a bunch on my recent trip. Well, not recent at this point, but back in February when we were in Florida. In the evenings, it would take them kind of a while to get the kids settled, and the house would just be kind of like quiet, and we're all just kind of sitting around, and, you know, people would either be on their phones or doing something. And so I would pull out the Portal and I would play Inscription over cloud. And if there was any latency or anything weird happening, it didn't matter, because like the pace of that game is sort of conducive to that. Like, it's not a big deal if I get a little bit of lag. I was responding to someone who told me to fix my Wi-Fi. I upgraded my Wi-Fi for the Portal. Okay, so I'm confused. You're using the Portal in your home, you've got good Wi-Fi and the PlayStation's plugged directly in. If you're having trouble, this is like one of the worst things to hear, but it sounds like it's on your end. Like something is not configured properly. I'm set mine up. I've seen many other people set it up. If your portal is on the Wi-Fi and it's on the exact same network that the PlayStation is, it should be very good. Now, perhaps that's not how you have it set up. Maybe you don't know this. So here's your modem. Here's your Wi-Fi router. Okay. Sometimes they're a combo unit. Sometimes they're not. Your PlayStation needs to be plugged into the same network that is the Wi-Fi. Does that make sense? Like, you need to be on the same network. When you do that, there is like no latency at all when you're at home. The only latency you're going to get is if you get too far from the Wi-Fi with your portal, like, brick walls, steel beams, different floors of the home, things like that can cause it to mess up. But when I'm down here in my office or my entertainment room right there, and I'm within 10 feet of the Wi-Fi, I've never had a single issue because we're on the exact same network. I guess the concern would be, are you on the same network? Did you plug in, did you plug in to, do you have a Wi-Fi router? And is the PlayStation plugged into the modem? Like, have you done something like that where they're not sharing the network? If they're on the same network, the only time I ever got any issue is when I went upstairs and I was too far from the Wi-Fi. It's on the same network. There are quite a few bad Wi-Fi appliances that drop lots of packets. Upgrade your firmware, or worst case, sometimes you need to upgrade your Wi-Fi device. It sounds like he attempted to fix the problem by upgrading his Wi-Fi. That's what it sounds like he did. So I don't know. Maybe he's on the 2.4, which is the lowest setting. You can change it in the PS system menu. Yeah, I don't have advice on the Wi-Fi you should buy. I can just tell you that, I've used the dadgum thing in a hotel hundreds of miles away and had a perfectly fine experience. And then periodically there'll be a little hiccup, and I just assume that's the internet that I'm on or the Wi-Fi or packets along the way getting dropped. Who knows? But even using it when I'm not at home, I have not had a bad experience. Now, I had a bad experience in a hotel once where the internet speed was terrible, but that's not the portal's fault, and that's not PlayStation's fault. Like, sometimes you're just going to be in a location where you don't get good internet speed. He's here or on purple. Wait, is somebody asking where I'm currently streaming? People had issues if you don't separate out the frequency after doing so and using find. It worked flawlessly for me. Mine had issues on 2.4. Make sure the PS5 and the portal are on the 5 gig band. Well, you don't want the PlayStation on Wi-Fi. You want the PlayStation plugged in, hardwired. Yeah, you don't want the PlayStation using Wi-Fi. The portal is using Wi-Fi. The PlayStation needs to be plugged into the Ethernet. It doesn't need it, but you're going to increase the likelihood of a smooth experience. Guys, if you're watching on YouTube, really, really quickly for me, can you hit the like button? Also, double check your primes, see if they're ready for renewal, see if your membership on YouTube is ready for renewal. Let's try to be on pace this week. About 100 a day is what we look for. This week, Friday night, we're going to have to go stretch and bump it to Saturday because Friday is the 4th. And we're going to be at a get-together. So I still want to do it. I still want to do the celebration and the weekly, thing with you guys. But we're going to we'll have to shift it. If the PlayStation isn't plugged in, the portal will struggle to stay connected. What else was in? Let's see. You guys have submitted some questions. Well, no, Minstree is the only person submitting questions, and he submitted the same one twice. It seems like you've submitted the same question every time. Let me see. If you buy a digital version of Game of Series X, will it work on the handheld, or have to buy a PC version? Where's the eventual piece? Okay, so two different questions. Okay, Minstree says, if you buy a digital version of a game for the Series X, will it work on the new handheld, or do I have to buy the PC version? It will only work if it is labeled as a Play Anywhere game. There are games that are not labeled Play Anywhere, so you would have to buy it again, the PC version. This is correct, yes. Here is the dilemma facing this device. Here is the dilemma facing all of Xbox's marketing in this regard. Third-party games that have no interest in being a Play Anywhere game. You've got to compel a publisher or developer of a game that, hey, it's in our interest to not make the person buy the game a second time. So can you make your game playable on this device? If they've purchased it on Xbox, can it also be playable on this handheld? Do you see why classification of the device is so incredibly important, and why the shenanigans over the weekend is largely unhelpful? Because quite literally, you are going to, I think, struggle to get third-party publishers and developers to want to buy in on this. Why would they want to let somebody basically only ever buy one copy of the game? You've got to make a compelling reason to the developers and the publishers out there to be like, well, if we purchased it on the Xbox, we should let them also play it on this device that is a Windows 11 gaming device, and it's a different version of the game, basically. It's the PC version of the game. Do you see the problem with that? Like, I don't think that would be like PlayStation saying, hey, we think it would be great if somebody purchased, let's just really bring the plane all the way to the ground. That would be like PlayStation saying, yeah, if you bought Call of Duty on your PlayStation, you can also run it on a PC through our PlayStation app. So you don't have to buy it again. You just get the PC version of the game. Well, don't you think Xbox, the publisher and the developer, wouldn't they have a say in that? To be like, well, see, this is the quandary you're going to get caught in, where you have motivations as one of the largest publishers. Xbox is now one of the largest publishers. So you've got a motivation to sell games. You've got a motivation to move units. But you're conveying to the public that a value point of your brand is both that you don't have to buy games if you use Game Pass, and you only have to buy a game once. Again, you got to wonder, is that a solvent strategy when you make so much money from publishing? This year's COD will be Play Anywhere. Okay. Does that only apply, though, FCAT, if you buy it from Xbox, right? Like, it's not Play Anywhere if I buy it on my PlayStation, right? They're still going to have that dividing line. I mean, I'm assuming. We're in new territory now. If a Play Anywhere game lands on PlayStation and I buy it on PlayStation, can I then also just boot it up and install it on my Xbox? Can I just boot it up and install it on my PC? Or a handheld gaming device? Do you see? Like, again, they are now one of the largest publishers in the gaming world. This strategy seems very contrary to wanting to sell games, because you're basically making it to where people don't have to buy the game more than once. And plenty of people have done that over the years. I mean, GTA is probably the most egregious offender in this realm. Like, well, no, we don't want to give them a copy of the game on every platform. Coffee? Did you order some? You just said coffee, mate? Are you trying to order coffee? You just got to use the coffee command. If you guys haven't hit subscribe yet, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Hit that bell button so you don't miss these shows. Do me a favor, hit the like button as well. Try to get us to 300 likes. display. Oh. Sorry. Is that better? Why would you buy a digital product copy that you don't actually own more than once? What do you mean you do that right now? I do that right now, homie, and so do you. When I buy a game on Steam, I own it in Steam. I don't own it anywhere else. I can't like boot up. I'm trying to think of a game I bought on Steam, but I don't own on Hellblade 1. I can't boot up Hellblade 1 on my PlayStation. I bought it on Steam. I don't. That's what I'm saying. Like this strategy from them. And hear what I'm saying. Here I'm saying. I'm not saying it's not a good value to the consumer. The idea that you could turn on your Xbox and buy, the latest Xbox published game, and then you grab your handheld and go to work, and there the game sits. Or you've got your PC or whatever. That certainly has value to some, not all, but a slice of the consumer base. I actually don't think that many consumers are going to be compelled by it. If I'm honest. I just don't think so. So, I'm arguing from the business side of it. Like, are you going to be able to convince a third-party developer and publisher, hey, if somebody buys a game on our system, we want them to be able to play it anywhere. We don't want them to have to buy the game multiple times. So you're essentially going to the publisher and the developer and saying, you've got a version of the game for Xbox and for PC, and we want the person, when they buy it from us, that they basically get both versions. Correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't the head of Steam come out and say, we don't own any of the games we bought in our Steam library? I don't remember hearing Gabe ever say that. These are all rumors. There will be caveats when it comes. Let's just wait and see. I'm not sure what you're speaking to. What do you mean these are all rumors and that there will be caveats? What are you speaking to? I rebought my Play Anywhere titles on Steam. You can't change your control options easy in non-Steam, says Mango. I don't see the incentive to purchase from Xbox other than Game Pass, but you'll get a better version of those Game Pass games on PlayStation and PC later on. This just feels like not making any money, but with more steps. They put legal language somewhere on Steam. I mean, generally speaking, when you purchase a digital game, you're purchasing a license to have access to the game. And a license can obviously be revoked. This is one of the big pushes for the Stop Killing Games movement. The idea that they don't want companies to be able to revoke your access to a game willy-nilly. Like, TOS is allowing that. Like, basically, TOS is allowing that through what they argue is basically unfair, or what you would, I guess, argue unjust TOS. They're also arguing, single player DRM. They're arguing live service. There's a lot of ways that Stop Killing Games is trying to say, hey, listen, you need to not take access of games away from people. I think their movement is right in most of what it's doing. I think it gets really complicated when you get into the live service realm, because asking a company to hand over proprietary code so that you can have private servers, that's a big ask from a lot of companies, especially if there's security protocols in there that would have to be somehow removed. Like, you can't just hand over proprietary information like that to the public. They would want to protect that, I imagine. They wouldn't have to sustain the game. There's just the argument that, like, well, you'd have to hand it over in a way that would allow us to maintain private servers, right? There's also something in there about, like, wanting to know when a game is going to end. There's also stuff in there about how, like, TOS basically says, well, we can revoke your access anytime we want for any reason. And they think that that's not basically just, because then the consumer's not protected. There's also the idea that if there's a single-player game with online components, and then the online components are disabled or the servers are disabled, you lose access to the game. Or DRM issues, it's like, well, then just remove the DRM so people can access their single-player game in perpetuity, right? They just want the ability to try and keep it running. But it's not that simple. You can't just go to a company and say, hey, you have dedicated servers, okay? We need you to hand over all proprietary code involved with that so that we can maintain private servers after you guys shut everything down. That's a pretty big ask. I can't believe nobody complained about that today. I forgot that I left that on. I left on the automator. I usually have that off. It's now disabled. That's not what they're asking. That Wired Rope, how else are you going to turn on private servers for a game? What's the company going to have to do in order to empower the public to set up the private servers? Like, if currently you don't have the ability to do that. Currently you're playing a game on their servers, and there is no way for you to set up private servers. Even Asmongold said that this is a problem in wanting that. You're essentially asking that company to hand stuff over that likely will be proprietary. It's their stuff. They're like, well, yeah, here's the info, here's the code, here's how you set it up. We're going to hand this over so that you guys can continue to engage. You can set up your own private servers and continue playing, WoW or whatever. Zach was in agreement with the movement, and even he said that's a pretty big ask to be like, well, we want to have, perpetual access to the game on a private server. Watch the Gamer Nexus vid. No, I asked you a question. Don't do that thing where you give me homework. You're advocating for a position. Outline it for me. How are you, as the user, going to set up private servers without the company handing over information to you you presently don't have? At some point in time, there's a transaction made from company to public of, okay, here, now you can set up private servers of this game. That's one of the more unrealistic expectations, I think. I think the movement is largely good. I think they have expectations in it that are unrealistic. Like expecting a company to tell you when the live service game releases, when it's going to end. You said they want proprietary server data? No, I did not. I said it would likely require handing over proprietary information. I never said they're asking for proprietary information. I said they're asking for what would probably amount to proprietary information. Yes. There's potentially security protocols baked in. There's elements of anti-cheat baked in and cheat detection. All that stuff could be proprietary, and they're supposed to just hand all that over so that you can set up your own servers. So the only way for that to not happen, they'd have to remove any of that proprietary stuff and give you a non-proprietary version of the code or the infrastructure so that you could set up your own servers. Like, I'm not out in left field on this. This is something that even people who are supporting the movement have said that would be potentially a requirement. The leader of the movement goes over this in detail in that video. That's great, but that doesn't refute what I'm saying, Wired Rope. If you go to a company right now who has a live service game running on dedicated servers, and you say, when this game shuts down, we would like you to enable us to set up private servers, there is a high degree of probability they would have to hand over proprietary stuff because they've got it all running on their servers. So they've got security protocols, they've got probably some type of anti-cheat or cheat detection or something baked in. They would have to remove that and then give you a non-proprietary version of the stuff so that then you could set up the servers. Again, I think this is an unrealistic expectation to go to a game and say, hey, we expect you, before anything gets going, you need to build your game in a way so that you can offload it to the public if you see support of it. I think protecting single-player games, 100% agree with. I think revoking access due to DRM or like, hey, we shut off the online component, you can no longer access the game, totally reasonable. I think we should be protected with refunds. So like if a live service game boots up and 2 months later it's dead in the water, you should be able to get your money back. I think there should be instances of consumer protection so that those situations are rectified. Like Concord, the situation was rectified. People were given their money back. So the transaction was reversed. But like, oh, I gave you $60 3 or 4 years ago. I have permanent access to your game. And if you don't give it to me, there's an injustice being served here. It's like, well, hang on just a moment. If you paid for access to a game operating on their servers, there's a symbiotic relationship there that to insist that, well, no, then I need access to the game in perpetuity, I think that's just unreasonable. It's like you're asking companies to do something that they're probably going to be unwilling to do. Unless, of course, being coerced by the government, which then, of course, runs the risk of, well, then people wouldn't want to make games like that anymore. And people are like, well, that's great. And it's like, these are some of the most engaged with games. Are you insane? It'd be great if we got less games like that, less live service games. Listen, I know it's like in vogue and it's like meta to like hate on live service games, but there are millions of people every day loving and enjoying and living in a live service game. Like, so you want to just crush that industry because of we've had some bad actors and some bad games and some bad situations. You don't want to crush that with an overregulated sense of like, well, you're going to be forced to do this if you make a live service game. Well, you're going to end up having companies say we don't want to do that anymore. They'll vacate to mobile or something. They'll just make cheap fly-by-night gacha games and Candy Crush. It wouldn't crush the industry. I didn't say it would crush the industry. You would motivate companies to not want to do that. Whenever you start to regulate to that degree, you would have companies say, well, we can't do that. We don't have the ability. We're not set up with the bandwidth to do that. We've set up our game in such a way where it runs on like AWS or it runs on these servers over here, and all the stuff that we built, we can just hand that over to the public one day. I'm in Dune Awakening right now. Right. You've got to ask the question, what affords the most protection for the consumer without harming the ability to innovate and create games like a Dune Awakening? You don't want to overextend to the point that like, well, we're protecting the consumer so much, you end up motivating studios to say, well, we're not going to enter the market in that regard anymore. It's too difficult, or they're requiring us to do things that are undue. Like, we can't do that. AOZ said something. Hang on. AOZ says, read my last comment. The leader of the movement doesn't understand software development, cross-development licensing, royalties, annual license fees. The campaign's naive if they think they can get a simple server executable. Right. Again, I think that's what I was trying to drive at. There is a lot more involved than just like, here you go, you can now do private servers and we'll fade off into the sunset and you guys can keep playing the game. It's not that simple. That's just such an oversimplification to be like, well, just grant us access in perpetuity so we can set up private servers. Now, listen, if a developer can do that, great. That's excellent for the consumer. I don't want a company coerced to do that to the degree that they would either say, well, we can't do that because there's proprietary information baked in here that we don't want to hand over to the public, or when they're beginning development, they would say that's too much to ask. We can't possibly do that. And then they just don't make the game. Well, that's good. We'll get less live service slop. Again, in every branch of gaming, I think innovation and evolution can take place. So I think really good live service games could be being developed right now. For goodness sakes, people are playing one and enjoying it. They're enjoying Dune Awakening. That's a live service game. And they're having a good time. You want to take that from consumers because you've got some axe to grind against live service games? Like, what? The consumer base at large that engages with games is not this narrow anti-live service like drum bang that we get on like YouTube and Twitter. There are millions of people every day who just live in these games and they love them. They get joy from them, and they have fun. And you hating live service games, I mean, bully for you. Don't play them. Like, play the games that you enjoy. There is an ocean of games right now that are single player and top quality. You could get lost in the games that just came out this year. It's not like if you somehow strong-armed or coerced developers into not making live service games, that they would just suddenly make the games that you want. Like, if that's the game they want to make, if they want to make some game where, I don't know, it's some ongoing live service MMO or something, and you hate those games, but what if that's the game they want to make? Don't you want... I mean, I would think you would want developers making the games they want to make. And if you don't like them and you don't engage with them, that's what the market's supposed to do. We don't want developers basically, like, conversely, look at what happened when a single player studio was tasked with making a multiplayer game, right? This happened with Arcane and Redfall, okay? So the inverse could be true. If a game company has done their research and they're really passionate and they really want to build some live service game, you being anti-live service game and hoping that we could, like, regulate and get in and make it hard for them to make a live service game because you're sick of all this live service slop. Well, again, so you want them to make a game then that they don't want to make? Do you see the problem with this? To me, it makes way more sense, and I think this is the bigger issue. The greatest layer of protection that the consumer could possibly have is refunds. This is the fight that we should be fighting. The movement that we should be fighting is refunds. It is your greatest, and I mean your greatest, single cause of reaction to a bad product. And we can't do it. Millions of people will buy a game and be disappointed within the first 45 minutes or an hour because it's either buggy, glitchy, not as good as they thought, or there's clearly some kind of a problem. And they're stuck with it. If you were able to refund the game and get your money back, that would be your greatest line of defense against all of the crap that we get annoyed by. I feel like we're straining at a gnat. It's like, well, but they could take away your access one day. This is correct. You're fighting an enormous fight trying to fight that, because so many of these companies now have made it to where you're buying a license to access a game. And so you got Microsoft involved, you've got Nintendo involved, you've got PlayStation involved. You're straining at this small instances where it's happened, and it's this actual giant fight. You're fighting against, like, it's not even David and Goliath. It's like David against the moon. You're going to have a really, really hard time winning that fight. Where I think we could win is asking for digital refunds. We should be protected. If I can purchase and this is how I've always argued it, the ease with which I can purchase something, I should equally be able to refund it. It's when you go to return something to Target, they're not like, well, you got to hop on a train and go to Texas to return it. It's like, no, you return it at the point of purchase. That same rule should apply for digital purchases within reason, right? You're not going to refund a game after you played it for 50 hours. I think that's a greater way of protecting consumers is the ability to refund something. Because you wouldn't see Mind's Eyes happening if you could return a game. You wouldn't. And I tell you what they wouldn't be doing. They wouldn't be laying people off. They'd be shutting down. You ship a game like that, in that state, and anybody with a working brain and eyeballs can refund it, you're not laying people off. You're shutting the studio down. So they wouldn't do it. Oh my, all of a sudden companies would be like, yeah, we're not going to ship just yet. We're not quite ready. Yeah, gee, I wonder why. Because people can return the dadgum game, and you're going to be in a horrible financial situation if they're able to do that. Not to mention Destiny having a 10-plus year run as a live service game. What is this? Oh, hang on. I got to confirm this. I'm having them come and check on my AC unit and blower, even though the work they did on the roof has helped immensely. So again, I applaud the effort of the movement, and I support the notion that companies should not be able to just revoke your access to a game willy-nilly. I mean, I'm living proof that a company can do it, and it can be very, very unjust, right? So I'm fully in support of that idea. What I'm not in support of is this idea that, like, you're essentially going to be asking studios to do something that's unreasonable. A live service game cannot tell you when it's going to end when it launches. That's an unreasonable expectation. It could last 8 months or 8 years. It depends on how successful it is financially. They literally can't predict that. Like, ideally, a live service game would go until the wheels fall off. They're like, we're going to ride this thing and literally until it can't ride no more. Well, we can't put that in the TOS, because what if financially it makes it 18 months and then it's like, this isn't feasible. We're not making enough money to operate the company. Oh, well, now you need to hand everything over to us so that we can set up private servers. Again, I feel like that's an unreasonable expectation. Like, if a company wants to do that, that's great. I think that's noble. I think it's great service to the fans. But I don't think it's a reasonable expectation, because every single company is different. Their server infrastructure is going to be different. The amount of security protocols that are baked into the server infrastructure is different. The amount of anti-cheat that's baked into the server infrastructure is different. And they can't just hand all that over to you. There should be a minimum expectation of use. The problem with that, Hadigan, is if they get 8 months in and the money's not there, it would become financially impossible for them to continue. What are you going to do? You going to sue them? You going to fine them? Because think about what you're saying. Okay? If you buy a game that's a live service game, and you are like, I should get a minimum expectation of use out of this game for, let's say, 2 years. And they make it to 14 months, and it's like, there's no frickin' way. We're not making enough money. The player base has dried up. We can't operate. We can't generate enough money. We have to shut the game down. And you, obviously, it's fair. You're upset. You feel like expectations have not been met, and you would like to have some sort of action taken, whether they give you your money back or they're fined or they're sued, okay? I don't think that is the appropriate route to take here. They made a product. The product didn't work. It didn't go the distance. And the natural course of that is that the game dies. Happy to see you doing well. I used to watch quite a while during the Destiny days. Always enjoyed hearing your takes and debates. Well, I appreciate that. Welcome back. You guys on YouTube, double check you've hit the like button. Try to get us to 300 likes. Over here on purple, do me a favor and hit the follow button, hit the heart button, and check your primes. You guys can help us with our weekly goal to unlock a Friday night stream with Madam. It's going to have to get bumped to Saturday this week because Friday is the 4th of July. Also, if you're watching on YouTube and you haven't hit subscribe yet, consider hitting subscribe. I think YouTube's doing some kind of a purge or something. The only thing you accomplish by forcing games that have failed to continue running is destruction of the dev and the publisher. And through their destruction, we will be reborn. Yeah, like, think about what you're saying. You're like, oh, a game company, took a chance on a game and it didn't make it. And because I wanted it to make it, I would like to amplify the pain that the company's going through. They only made it to 13 months, and I expected 2 years out of this game. I would like my money back, or I would like them to be financially harmed even more. They're probably at that point staring down the barrel of layoffs, maybe studio closure, if their game doesn't go the distance. Do you see the problem with that? It's like, I don't think that's a reasonable expectation as a consumer, that you bought into a live service game that lives and dies on the game being successful, supported, and people playing it and buying stuff. And if that doesn't happen, what do you want? I don't know what they want the developer to do at that point. And I know they're like, oh, we'll hand it off so we can keep playing. In instances where that's possible, sure. But I don't think every studio is set up to do that, to just hand over all the stuff, to be like, here you go, here's how you guys can set up private servers. I just don't think it's that simple. I think if it were that simple, more companies would do it, because it would just be an easy out. It'd be like, yeah, here you go, just you guys do it. You guys deal with it. We're out. We're done. You guys can run your own servers now. I want Battleborn to still be playable. Can't you play Battleborn out offline? You can't play it at all? You can't play like through the missions? The PvE content? Shouldn't there be some minimum expectations for how long a product works when you purchase it? I think that's a difficult question to answer, Robert. So in the case of Concord, everybody got their money back. That was the right thing to do. It didn't even make it a month, okay? What do you do if 6 months in, some live service game just goes belly up, right? Like, what if Helldivers would have just like completely tanked after 6 months, and there was no feasible way for them to support it and to keep it going? It was going to bankrupt the company. Like, in that situation, you've got to think about, there's two sides to this street. If a game is facing a rapid end of life within, 6 months to 18 months, you understand that's not a good thing for that company. They're not like throwing confetti in the air. Ha ha! We're going to shut the game down and take your access away. No, they're probably facing financial ruin if something like this happens. So yes, it's upsetting that you would then lose access to the game, but there's no financial road for them to be like, well, we'll just keep going. I'll pick your thumb. A company should refund recent purchases, but if you've got a few hundred hours in after 6 months, you're past that. You don't get to return the steak after you ate it. Yeah, I wonder if we're hang on, I forgot to thank this person. Nectian with 20 months and a member plus on YouTube. I've been on Xbox since 2003, and I hate the direction they're going in. I don't like Windows, I don't like PCs, and I feel like I'm being forced to embrace it. I appreciate that so much. We are at 34. Currently, I owe YouTube 5. I guess I'm going to pay that now. I was kind of waiting. It looked like we were going to go on a little bit of a tear there, and we didn't. Let me do this. I wonder if that's the problem with what we're saying in this discussion. What's the value transmission? When you buy Helldivers 2, was the value transmission that you would have access to the game in perpetuity, or was the expectation that you would get the game and play it for a reasonable amount of time? Like, I feel like those are two very, very different expectations. You've got one that I don't know, and maybe this is just because I sort of went through that evolution and making content with Destiny and just understanding that you can't have perpetual access to a game. That doesn't seem reasonable. When the game lives on servers, I don't expect that. I expect eventually, the game, I won't have access to this game at some point in time. Like, like Destiny 1, for example. Have you mentioned the crew? The crew is one of the examples, and this is why I said there are examples that should be rectified. Taking access away from people, because there's a single player version of the crew, is there not? And like they basically took access away, and that's one of the reasons that people are, really upset about, hey, they could do this with basically any game going forward. And that's where I think their pushback on TOS is exactly right. I don't think companies should be like, we should just be able to revoke your access for no reason whatsoever. It's like, no, there should be impetus for revoking a license. Right? I believe that. But here's the inverse problem. If we're going to argue that the TOS is unjust when they're like, we can take away your access for any reason whatsoever, I agree that's an overreach. Conversely, I also think it's an overreach that you demand perpetual access to a game that has a lot of its content living on servers that aren't yours. Right? You're paying for access to those servers to play WoW or whatever. Expecting perpetual access to that, I don't think is reasonable. I think there is a reasonable expectation of access, especially when it's a subservice. Especially when it's a subservice, because you're paying an active sub fee to have access to what they have. And then if the server's shut down, you're no longer paying for that access, right? That money is no longer going out. So I think that's like a happy break, right? It's like, yeah, you were paying this sub fee, you're now no longer paying the sub fee, so you don't have access. I think that makes perfectly good sense. But we've got these other quasi non-sub fee live service games where you pay, $40, $50 or $60, and then you can lose access to the game if they shut the servers down. So at what point are you knowingly paying for access that isn't permanent, and is expecting permanent access reasonable? I don't think that it is. Is hoping for the ability for them to hand things over, so like you could set up private servers. Like if there was some way for people to set up, private servers for Destiny 1 and keep playing for forever, as long as like somebody maintains the servers, right? Because somebody could obviously like shut their own servers down just because they don't feel like doing it anymore or whatever. The argument is that you just want it to be possible. If people were able to do that, I think that would be cool. But I don't think creating an imperative on, like a legally enforced imperative on the company to do that, I don't think that's the appropriate approach here. I don't. What do you think about the notion of allowing gamers to just run independent servers for those games once the devs have completely wiped their hands clean of it? I've spoken to that multiple times today. I don't think that's a reasonable expectation. I don't think asking a company to hand over what will almost assuredly have proprietary code in it. Everybody's server infrastructure is different. Whatever layers of security is in there, I mean, do they have to then do the due diligence of removing it all before giving it to you so that you can't see how all that works, right? Like, basically asking them to hand over their stuff so that then you can use it to run it on your own servers. Again, I doubt it. People will mod it anyway. I understand the reasons, and I understand what people want. I don't think asking these companies to hand that stuff over is... I don't think it's as simple as like, yeah, here's the flash drive. Here's all the stuff you need. Every company in server infrastructure is completely different. So I don't think it's as simple as just handing over the code. So if I'm a company and give you my code, what's stopping you from copying all my stuff and selling it as something else? Again, I think it's far more complex than just let us set up our own servers. I think that's a very simple way of saying something that's probably pretty complex. If the servers are all running in enterprise ARM servers, do they have to create an x86 version for normal consumers to use? That would be an absurd thing to ask. Why would it increase budgets? Lido says test. What's good, Lido? Use the server budgets and redirect it to development? Huh? Let the people who mod the games tell if it's hard to do. We need the back-end research. People who mod the games would not be able to definitively speak to how difficult it would be to hand over the required amount of code to let you set up private servers. They have to they're not handing the game to you. They're handing something very different to you. Lido, thank you so much for 3 months. And that takes us to 35. A slow start to the week, but we could turn it around. Both sides can still push. We're 15 away from the next milestone. That's not the argument. The lead of the movement says it can be released in whatever version is needed. They wouldn't be expected to create a new version. English, oh, that is the difficulty. They can't, I don't think most companies can just be like, okay, we're ending of life the game, and they just go like this. Here's everything. I don't think it's that simple. I really don't. There is a potential, and again, Asmongold was reacting to the videos on this. He's in support of the movement. I'm in support of the movement. But even he said that's probably an unreasonable thing because there's a very high probability of proprietary information, code, and protocols being in that. They can't just be like, yeah, here's all of our proprietary stuff. Have a ball. We're shutting down. Like, you're asking them to do something that no one's presently doing, and there's probably good reason for it. Like, they're not just handing stuff off to the public willy-nilly, and there's probably good reason for that. Thank you, Light Leap, for 46 months and a VIP. The real milestone in 2 months. Thank you so much, Leap. And 27 months from Keithius. And Lido over here on Purple said, I forgot this one was manual. Yeah, if you guys want to use your primes, you got to do it manual every single month. Thank you so much. Wait, I gave yours to the wrong thing. This should have been a 31, which make this a 33. This should be a 4. Yours was on purple. I gave it to the wrong team. My bad, Lido. I agree with your point on the proprietary information. I don't think most information will be releasable, but some things can be done easily and low cost. Okay, so let's flesh that out then, Englisho. Okay, it could be done easily and at low cost. Total blind speculation on your part and mine. We have no idea if it would be easily done or low cost. Let's say you're right. Let's say you're right. So in the death throes of a live service game, you want them to be forced to spend time and money making sure you have perpetual access. So they're facing down the barrel of the end, which likely means the money coming in is going down. You know, maybe they've already done layoffs. Maybe they've done everything they can to save it. And they're like, no, we have to end of life the game. It's over. It's cooked. We're done. And in the death throes of the game, we're not talking about death throes. It was done during initial development. So during initial development, they're supposed to do this. How could they do that since the version of the servers and the version that they would need to hand off to you could look completely different in 3 years? The end-of-life plan is part of the development. Again, I think you and many people talking about this are completely speaking out of turn. The version of the game that exists 3 years later is they can't know that, like, oh yeah, what we're going to hand off to them is right here. And then 3 years later, it's a completely different game, completely different protocols and server infrastructures have been updated. Like, all that stuff's been changed. What's Jez saying? Hang on. He says Microsoft just literally announced new Xbox hardware versus someone who hasn't been there for over a decade saying they're not going to make hardware. Genuinely think some people just want to see Xbox fail. I have no idea why you just believe the latter otherwise. Well, Jez has stopped by and he's been a friend of the show and cordial, and I like him, but I think he's missing what Laura Fryer said. It seems completely reasonable to predict right now that they're no longer going to make their own hardware. She's very careful in her video. Asus is making this handheld For all intents and purposes, even the people connected to Xbox have said Xbox will not be making their own handheld. It has been canceled. I believe even Jez has said that he doesn't think they're going to make it. So when Laura makes her video and says what she says, she is speaking specifically to they're no longer making hardware. They're going to have other people do it for them. She's not saying there won't be hardware out there in the future with the name Xbox on it. She's saying Xbox as a company, they're basically like, yeah, we're not doing hardware. We're leaving. Light Leap, thanks for 34 months. Also on Purple, the double dip is real. Gets us to 38. So yeah, I don't think that's an accurate representation of what she says, to be like, well, they just announced hardware and this person's saying they're not going to do hardware. She's quite literally interacting with the announcement and interacting with how everything has been framed. Lono, think of it this way. Like, Sony now makes its games with PC ports in mind. So they make different decisions that if it was only ever PS5, you could do the same with the back ends. Okay, that's an excellent piece of pushback, Zubair, and you probably know where I'm going with this. Why has PlayStation changed their pipeline to make porting to PC easier? Why? Because they have a business interest in doing that and making that more efficient. When you make that more efficient, you stand to make better money. So there is a commercial and revenue motivation there. How are you going to motivate a live service company to say, from moment one, you need to build all your infrastructure in a way so that you can hand this over to the public if the game ever dies? There's no revenue motivation for them to do that, because at that point in time, they're not making money. They're basically killing the game. It's over. It's end of life. Is what all day trash Xbox? You are clearly just, I guess, maybe farming or wanting a reaction. We haven't even been talking about Xbox for the last, 20 minutes. We've been talking about the Stop Killing Games movement. And Stone Spire setting up a 10 bomb. We need it. We need to put some gas in this tank. We're at 35-5 in the contest. We're now at 40 and a 10 bomb to 50. We'll see if anybody takes the bait. Stone Spire's so good at setting that up. Hey, developers, spend an extra $5 million on planning our failure. It's no different than laws that regulate loot boxes. If you want to sell games, you have to follow these regulations. Okay, that's my point. The only way you would get companies to do this is through legal imperative, which is what the movement wants. They want to start a conversation that could get this in front of lawmakers to potentially start to put laws into place to protect gamers. Let's say they get their way and you regulate live service games so that from moment one, if you're going to build your game, you have to ensure it can be handed to the public if you shut it down. Okay? Personally, I think that's terrible. You're basically dictating development a priori. Like, from the very beginning, you're dictating how a company gets to develop their game so that you get perpetual access if you so desire. I just don't think that's a good thing. I don't think that would be good. I think it's good to protect consumers by letting us refund games within a reasonable amount of time. I think that is our biggest win that we should fight for, personally. If I'm triaging the order of importance of consumer protection, I think refunds is at the top. Nothing competes with it. Nothing. Revoking access is such a minuscule, barely ever happens thing. Needing to refund a game is everyday occurrence. It happens every day. Somebody buys a game, it's not very good, it's glitchy, it's buggy, or they just don't like it, and they're 30 minutes in and they feel remorse. What that does is bad for the industry. It makes them less likely to buy games in the future. It makes them less likely to try out games in the future. It makes them more likely to not trust devs and publishers in the future, and ergo put less money into the industry. Refunds is at the top. Allowing consumers to refund games is of the utmost importance. It's more important than all this other stuff. It just simply is. That's my opinion, but I truly believe that. I think that would be one of the single biggest wins for consumer protection within the video game space. Asking companies to build a game from moment one so that the servers can be handed off to the public in perpetuity so that like they can do their own private servers. I think that expectation is one where many developers would chime in and say, you don't really know what you're asking. You're asking something that's unreasonable. You cannot possibly expect us to do that. So now we're not just focused on building a good game with good infrastructure, and that infrastructure serves the game, and the security protocols serve the game so that you have a great experience. We're now serving some other secondary purpose where our development choices, our infrastructure choices are centered around some future date where we hand off access to you. So now what you're doing is, again, you're asking the developers to do something that is secondary to development of the game. I think that's unreasonable. I do. I think there are parts of this that are reasonable, and I think that's not one of them. Scheduled obsolescence is currently legal for most products. The current EOL push for legislation that favors consumers is an uphill fight. I agree. I think it's an uphill fight. I think we're far better off fighting the fight of refunds. If we're going to come together and fight for a fight of consumer protection, you're way more likely to win and get the government to pay attention to, we should be able to refund digitally purchased goods within a reasonable amount of time. Because we can be given something in digital form that is broken and doesn't work. And a 5-bomb comes in from Siriu, and a single over here, Dodeva, with 4 months, puts us at 40-6. And I need to add that to the total. We are now officially right there on the doorstep of 50. Whoever hits it gets it. A 5-bomb could secure it right now. Thank you, Siriu. The first step in winning a fight is picking the right fight. That's what I mean. I really do think you're far better off trying to fight a very single focused thing, which is we are not empowered as consumers to refund digital goods. Digital goods can be sold in a way that they are subpar, broken, and not a shape worthy of delivery. That's a consumer protection worthy fighting for. This one that they're fighting, I agree with most of it, but it's so big and so broad. I think it's a losing battle because you're going to ultimately it's almost like you're trying to pick too many fronts. You've got to pick one front first, win that fight, and then go from there. The playable forever is only one strand of several. Well, this is another part that I agree with. I agree with the TOS part that he talked about because he reacted to Thor's video, and he was like, there are TOSs that literally say we can revoke your access at any point for whatever reason we see fit or whatever. I agree with him. That's unjust. Kind of like how there was contract law passed in California where like you can't as an agency take more than a certain percentage. Like basically you cannot have an unjust contract. Right? I believe similar regulation should be passed. You can't have unjust TOS. Like, yeah, we don't like you. You don't get to play. That's literally basically what happened to me in Destiny. We don't like you. We don't like what you're saying in the public. And so we're going to take your access away. What? I didn't break your TOS. I didn't break your rules. There was no citation. There was no evidence supplied like, oh, you did this on this date in this way. I agree with them on that front. Yeah, that's unjust. You shouldn't have TOS that can just like, yeah, we can just take away your ability to play the game anytime we want for no reason. An unconscionable contract? If that's the terminology, yeah. I agree with that. I agree with them. I agree with most of it. I think that there are certain elements of it that are unreasonable. And the only reason I'm saying this is you're hurting your effort, right? Just think in the terms of negotiation, okay? So when my kiddos are negotiating with me, I will tell them, I'm like, you're hurting your own aims right now. You're asking for way too much, right? So in a negotiation, that you know that if you ask for too much, you're going to shut the conversation down entirely, right? We would like to be properly compensated for our hours, and we don't feel like we're paid enough. Okay, that's fair. We would also like everybody to be given a Ferrari. Okay, well, you just shut down negotiations. It's like no one's going to even listen to you at that point. So when you're saying, we feel consumers are not properly protected because access to games can be revoked. Okay, yeah, let's have a conversation about it. This is exactly something that should be discussed. We think companies, from moment one of designing a game, should design it in a way where they can hand off the servers to us. You know, they're obviously going to want to avoid proprietary information, security infrastructures, things that could be very, very sensitive that they don't want the public to see and have. Well, for moment one, they need to design their game in a way where they can hand that off to us, still retain their proprietary info and protect their own, you know, security information, protocols, what have you. They need to build the game from moment one so they can do that. Okay, you've already overstretched. Like, that's too much. You're asking too much. You're never going to get companies they're going to argue, I think, rather winsomely in court if this was like going before, you know, like hearings and boards and different government agencies. These companies would very easily argue that right out of the room. They'd be like, this is completely unreasonable. The amount of work that it would require us to do from moment one, you would basically create an instance where the game couldn't come to fruition. Like, they would argue this right out of the room. So again, you're asking for too much. You got to ask for something that like makes more sense. Like, okay, we've got TOS that's unjust. We've got, you know, revoke to games that shouldn't be revoked. Like, just remove the DRM or whatever, or like shut off the online aspects, but allow people to remain single player access, right? Because there's definitely things you can do in games that you don't need the internet for. This is not a negotiation where you ask Kai to meet in the middle. You need to use baby steps to get there. The proper role of government regulation is to apply public policy to the free market. We decide certain things are fair or important, so we impose extra responsibilities on actors. Eugene says, this is why I don't see the movement as serious. They don't have serious asks. I think they have serious asks, and then I think they have ones that go too far. I think they're serious, and I think they mean well, but I think they're overreaching, and in so doing, I think it will ultimately hurt them. Like, If you want this to get traction, I think it needs to be more laser focused, and I think it needs to be more within the realm of possibility. I think refunds are so much easier to argue. It's so much easier to argue refunds. You can literally cite games that don't function properly at launch. I think what you would do, if I were to put together a case to argue for all digital storefronts should be required to offer a digital refund within a certain amount of time. I just think that should be the case. I think a very easy case could be made for, you would go to the day before on Steam, and you would say, absent of refunds, this would have been unjust. People would have been basically scammed out of money. And then you would use Concord, and you would say, absent of everyone being refunded, the consumer would have been scammed. They would have been sold something that did not work. 2 weeks later, you can't play the game because it requires online, right? And they were shutting everything down. I think you would use those two instances and say, the reality is, right now, that happens every day on Nintendo, PlayStation, and Xbox. Yeah, and then you could use an example like Redfall. A game like Redfall launches and it is such ill shape. It is so poorly built that the version of the game in the commercials does not at all line up with the playable game at launch. This is a situation where the consumer should have been empowered to get their money back. And then I would walk Mind's Eye out and I would make the exact same case. I would say this is very close to the abysmal state that the day before launched in, of barely functioning, very glitch-riddled game, crashes, bugs, problems. The consumer should be, in this instance, empowered to go push a button and get their money back. I think that's far easier argument to make. Because if you try to argue against it, it's really hard to argue against it. How do you argue against a consumer saying, I bought something, it's in such poor condition, that I cannot engage with it in the way that a game is ought to be engaged with. I should be able to get my money back for this. How do you argue against the consumer being able to do that? Right? Now, that's what you call non-conforming goods. Right. So in this instance, with the Stop Killing Games initiative, there are tons of arguments you could push against what they're asking for, which then weakens it. Like, we need to know when a game's end of life is going to happen when the live service game launches. Unreasonable. Every game that uses servers should give us access to whatever code necessary to run our own servers if the game ever shuts down. I think that's unreasonable. You've got to take that stuff out, or you're never going to get anywhere, because these companies are going to rather winsomely argue that what you're asking for is in some cases probably impossible. Because they would say, listen, and here's what they would do. I'm going to tell you what they would do. So there's like proprietary recipe law, which is very frustrating as a dad who has a daughter with an allergy. You know, so proprietary recipe law means like they don't have to tell you like everything that's in there or the amounts and this, that, and the third. And so what it does is it protects them from being like, well, there's only this much, you know, of something in there. So they can say, oh, it's got vitamin B in it, but it's got like a pixie dust amount. So you're not actually getting like vitamin B, right? So what a lot of these companies would do is they would just bake in proprietary tech into the server infrastructure and say, you cannot compel us to give this over to the public. It contains proprietary information that's protected. That's all these companies would probably do to get away from it. We've already got a law in the UK that requires manufacturers of online products to commit to a minimum time frame they will maintain security patches, etc. What do you think is reasonable? I think anything beyond 6 months is a lot, because like what if the game isn't doing well? Like, you see what I'm saying? Like imagine if Helldivers would have come out and we all had a blast and we played, and then 6 months later Bottom falls out, dead. Or this Rematch soccer game. I think Rematch has a lot of potential, but the player base numbers are already waning, okay? If in 6 months Rematch can't sustain the game, the servers, they're not making enough money, beyond that, again, what's reasonable then to ask of the company? Keep going. Spend money to, go in and provide us with the server access. You're going to have to remove anything that's proprietary, so that you don't want people seeing your, Again, I think security protocols and anti-cheat protocols would be the biggest thing they wouldn't want people to see. They don't if they homebrew any of it, they're not going to want people to know how they do it. Always better to push for more and get walked back. Yeah, but we're not negotiating pay, Omar. So it's kind of like my example where you're trying to negotiate fair pay, and then you say, and we want everybody to be given a Ferrari. They very likely are going to throw the baby out with the bathwater. They're going to be like, well, this isn't serious. Dismiss this. Get this the frick out of here. Everybody wants a Ferrari. These guys aren't serious, right? If you come to the table and you're asking for all this stuff, and one of the asks is deemed like completely unreasonable, you get the whole thing thrown out. They're like, well, we're not even going to consider this until you come back with more reasonable requests. I don't think it's so crazy as a Ferrari, though. Omar, you're intelligent enough to know that I'm using hyperbole to make a point. You know that I'm not saying it's equal to a Ferrari, right? This isn't Twitter, where you have the worst read of my opinion. You know what I'm communicating. I'm not saying they're asking for a Ferrari. I'm saying if it's viewed as an extreme overreach, like the Ferrari would be, you could get the whole thing thrown out. They aren't going that overboard. Again, I'm not arguing that they are. I'm saying if it is in fact viewed that way, if they view it that way, because listen to what I was saying. If the development companies and the publishers argue that that's an absurd request and they do it compellingly, then the whole thing could get thrown out. Do you see? Like, that's why I'm using the hyperbole of the Ferrari. A very bad faith read of what I'm saying would be Reforge Gaming thinks that these guys are basically asking for a Ferrari. It's like, no, I'm saying in the negotiation, it could be compellingly argued that you are asking for way too much, and then the whole thing gets dismissed. It could absolutely short circuit their aims to say anybody who makes a live service game, a 30-person studio to a 500-person studio, they all have to ensure from moment one that their server infrastructure can be handed over to the public. I believe that is a massive overreach, and it would immediately get, I think, argued so by anybody who is sort of in defense of the developers and the publishers. They would argue that rather compellingly, and then the thing would get thrown out. Most negotiations are overreaches, but this is not necessarily a negotiation. This is an attempt to get a conversation started to get the government to start thinking about bringing this to bear. And you wouldn't want it to be seen as something that is like you want it to be seen as a serious thing. It could be dismissed as not very serious. It could be like, well, this is just a bunch of entitled people that want, perpetual access to server infrastructure that they didn't design, or, they don't have a right to. You paid for access to the server infrastructure. You didn't pay for perpetual access to the server infrastructure. Like $60 one time, granting you perpetual access to the server infrastructure. Like, it's not like when you bought a cartridge, like nobody can come to your house, like steal the cartridge away from you, right? You're not, here's the thing. It's a different transaction. I think that also has to be stated. It's a different transaction. When I bought Helldivers 2, it was not the same as when I bought Super Metroid. It is a different transaction. I am paying for access to their servers to play a game. It's a different transaction. You get a Ferrari and you get a Ferrari. That's right. Thank you so much. Nobody has stolen the 50 milestone yet. It's just dangling there. It's a 5-bomb away. All right. If you guys haven't hit the like button yet on YouTube, do me a favor and do that. Okay. No. Today. I thought people also like Lambos. Yo, what's good, Spice King? What's good, Kevin George? Yeah, that's good. That's why a lot of people hate live service titles, because it leads into consumers buying into temporary license. But okay, let me just ask a question. If the consumer properly understands what they're buying into, where's the injustice? Isn't it only unjust in the live service environment if access is revoked unjustly, like with me, or just rapidly? Like you get 17 days in and they just shut down. Like, is anybody ignorant that when they bought Helldivers or Destiny or any of these games that, like, yeah, I mean, in 7 years, it's likely that the Helldivers 2 servers might not be there. Like, is the consumer being misled, or is it that the consumer doesn't like the terms of the deal? Like, if it's that you don't like the terms of the deal, again, you'd have to argue that the deal is unjust. That, like, we built a game, we use this server infrastructure, we got all this stuff set up, and at some point in the future, yeah, I mean, we're not going to run this game for all of eternity, So, yeah, 20 years from now, we're probably not going to have access to Helldivers 2. And people are saying, well, that's terrible for game preservation. A version of that game being accessible in perpetuity is good. I think it's an ideal, yes, but I don't know if it's reasonable to ask of all developers that should just be somehow a thing. I think getting there is too arduous. You're not going to get companies to want to do it or agree to it. Again, without legal coercion, which is the entire point of the movement. Thank you so much, Colin, for 46 months and a member plus. That takes us to 47 on the day. Thank you, sir. Okay. Helldivers 2 won't go away. Folks on PC are absolutely going to preserve it in some fashion. Well, and here's the thing. I'm not saying that won't happen or can't happen or shouldn't happen. You got to listen to what I'm saying. I'm saying if you expect any company like that to step into the landscape and from moment one, they have to build every square inch of their game, like the server infrastructure, all of it, right? How the client to server resolutions are handled, all that has to be built with this in mind. One day, we are forced by law to hand this over to the public for game preservation and perpetual access. Like, that's one of the aspects that is being argued, is that every game that is developed in this way should be developed in a way so that when the game comes to a close, they are legally required to hand over whatever it is that's required and necessary, whatever code, so that people can set up private servers and have access to the game in perpetuity. They would be legally forced to do it. If they failed to do that, there would then be, and J. Chris does the 5 bomb and gets us there. I was like, man, that dangled there for a while. I now owe YouTube 5. There it is. We are officially 50 away from being on pace for the week. Thank you very, very much. How about a 14-day refund policy? Oh, I think we should be able to refund a game within a certain amount of time of play. Like, obviously, yeah, I guess if you bought the game and you, for whatever reason, you bought it because it was on sale and you took 33 days to finally boot up and play it, and within 30 minutes you're like, I hate this, it sucks, it's buggy, they haven't patched any of the major problems, I still think you should be able to get your money back. I think it should be more about time spent in the game, because you could take advantage of a huge sale that's happening and not get to the game. Maybe it takes you 32 days and then you finally get to the game and you're like, oh, for frick's sake, this thing sucks, or this is in terrible shape, I would like my money back. I think that's the better consumer protection we should be fighting for. Refunds. It would have to go further, right? How would we determine who they hand it to? Oh, they would make it publicly accessible. You would just say, here it is. This is what you need to set up the servers. I don't know where you put that or where that's hosted. If the company goes bankrupt, again, this is the problem with the expectation. The expectation is you need to hand it off to the public. And how do you do that? AOZ says, why do people think that their $40 to $80 has so much leverage? The last few players demanding the game do not get the rest of the number of copies purchased by other players as leverage as it rolls over. If I try to steelman the argument, AOZ, this is the argument, right? The argument is, when I pay for a game, I should be able to continue accessing that game. Like, so let's use the example of a single player game. I bought Ghost of Tsushima. My kids are currently too young to play it. I am so excited one day to, so let's say, okay, so my daughter is 11. So in 5 years, she'll be 16, okay? And she'll be able to play it on, like, the PlayStation 6, okay? And I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to my kids experiencing my favorite games once they're old enough. Or in some cases, once they're capable enough. Some of these games aren't, like adult, but they're, a little too challenging. Like, I don't think Returnal necessarily would be, like, wrong for them to play. Little spooky, little scary, but just too challenging, okay? So if I'm steel manning the argument, it would be terrible if suddenly that license got revoked just because. They're like, yeah, you don't have access to that game. Okay. Currently, the terms of service and the license agreements for a lot of these games allow the company to do that. Now, Helldivers 2, on the other hand, my son tried it once. It was too difficult for him. In 5 years, if they have decided they have to end of life the servers and they're not handing off, private servers in any capacity, and even if they do, then if I wanted him to play it, I'd have to figure out a way to get him to connect to private servers, which would probably have to be funneled through PC. That's not really something that's capable on the PlayStation right now, unless you'd have to then push out an update to the game on PlayStation to allow me to boot up a version of the game that then searches for private servers. You see what I'm saying? Like, they're saying that these are equal. My purchase of Helldivers and my purchase of Tsushima, in their mind, it's equal. I think the difficulty with that argument is, even saying it, I feel the weakness of it. It's like, but they're not equal. I feel they're different transactions. When I paid for Helldivers 2, there is like a baked-in expectation of, I'm not just buying a game that lives on my box. I'm buying a game that requires access to the company's servers. And expecting that to be somehow set up in a way where I can access it in perpetuity, I don't have that expectation because I feel like that's unreasonable. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm saying it just seems unreasonable to be like, well, I gave you $40 7 years ago. I demand perpetual access, and if you can't give it to me with your own servers, then you should hand over whatever is required so that people can set up private servers. I feel that is unreasonable. Because the developer is going to have to spend time and money in order to do that, and that's outside of what makes them money. You're basically asking them to do something that's not in service of their own, I guess, ability to flourish as a company. Like, again, you have to remember, companies are going to fight for self-preservation first. Their duty is not, this is where I think people get this mixed up. The company's duty is to their own survival. It's not to you. The means by which they survive is healthy value proposition, value transmission, consumer trust, all of that, right? But their duty is to the company's survival. This is why they'll do layoffs. This is why they might raise prices. This is why, they might, in some cases, we can't support that anymore. We have to shut that down. Because if we continue to do this, we won't survive as a company. So you would then be forcing them to do things that would be contrary to their survival. Read the last comment, says AOZ. Live service have ongoing costs that are strategized into the monetary plan, but the player is paying for a license to play as a service. The service ending is the end. Live service is a service. If I pay for a massage, I can't demand to keep getting the massage. That's why I said they're different. They're different purchases. They're different transactions. When I bought Ghost of Tsushima, it was a transaction that has a very clear value proposition and value transmission. The value transmission is single player game, beginning, middle, and end. I install it, I can play it. I don't need the internet to play it. If the servers aren't available for Legends or whatever, that all came later. So, but when I purchased Helldivers, there again, I think the consumer understands this. Maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like the consumer understands I have to have access to their servers in order to enjoy this game. And if that service ends one day, the game won't work. Wanting it to be, accessed in the future, or for game preservation purposes, wanting private servers to be made available, I think is a completely I think that's a completely understandable desire. I think the road to getting there is unreasonable because you're going to ask every single company that makes a game like this to, from moment one, they have to build their game with that understanding. At one point in the future, we will be legally forced to hand over the required code necessary to do private servers. And not every company is going to be in a position to do that. Some easier than others. Not all games are the same. If a game dies after you played it for a few years, I don't see how you didn't get your money's worth. Okay, so this is where they argue it from a completely different standpoint, Siriu. They're not arguing, okay, I have gotten an adequate amount of value. I've received an adequate amount of value. Their argument is, for game preservation purposes, as well as I paid for the game, and if I can no longer access the game, that is unjust. That's their argument. They're not getting into subjectivity of, well, did you get your value or not? Oh, well, 3 years later, how could you possibly argue that you didn't get your value? They're not arguing from a value perspective. They're arguing from the perspective of, you're revoking access to something that I purchased, right? I think that's where they would lose the argument. Someone would say, but you didn't purchase perpetual access. You purchased a license to access, and if those servers ever shut down, like if there's an outage, or like if the servers go down, are you compensated for that? Well, no. Well, no. Because you understand that the game requires access, and if you can't get access, the game doesn't work. It's not unreasonable. Several games that went offline have been taken over by fans because an offline mode was enabled. Right, but Dirge, not all games and studios are equal, brother. Take Hello Games, for example, right? Let's say that Light No Fire only works with an internet connection. And the way they have it set up is like they have their listen servers, and you're playing, everything's stored on your console, but you still need listen servers to boot up and sync with the other players in your region and what have you. And, in 10 years, they get to the point where they can't justify, supporting the game any longer, and they didn't build it with an off-ramp for this. Right? Let's just say they didn't build the game with an off-ramp. We're like, well, we can hand everything over. Let's say they're unable to do that. They would have to spend dev time, retrofitting everything and getting everything ready to then be like, okay, well now, you guys can set up your own listen servers so that people can still continue playing the game. The argument here would be that you want to legally require companies to do this. You want to require them from the beginning to develop their game with the off-ramp, like, essentially always there. And again, depending on studio size and depending on how they were building their games to interact with servers, that I believe that's an unreasonable thing to ask every single company out there. There's an MMO that Josh Strife Hayes did a review on where players have taken over. There's no updates and the devs have abandoned it, but thanks to the community, it still goes on. Right, and I think that's great. I'm not saying that that's not a good thing. I'm saying legally enforcing every company that ever tries to make a game like this to do this, I think is an overreach. I think it's an overreach. I don't think they will be successful in their endeavors if they ask for that. I think you have to ask for, personally, again, I think refunds are a better front. If we're going to fight a battle here, right, the forefront, the battle worth fighting is one for refunds. We should be able to more easily refund games on Nintendo, PlayStation, and Xbox. It should be as easy as it was to purchase. I should be able to go right to where I purchased it and say, refund me, revoke my access. Do you want to know why that's an easier argument to make? A lot of these games admit they can revoke your access. It's right there in the TOS. So you can refund me my money and you can revoke my access. Can't you? You see, that's the way you catch them. That's the trap card in this. Is you approach it that way. You say, listen, you guys have all made it to where you can just revoke my access to this game willy-nilly. Well, that means you can refund the game very easily then, can't you? This isn't difficult. You reverse the charge, and you revoke my access. It's basically a ban. It's not a ban, but it would be a version of license. You're revoking my access to the game because you gave me my money back. I'm sorry, I thought we were talking about the Stop Killing Games. We are. I think I agree with most of what they're trying to do. I agree with the intentions. I think they're, in some cases, they're just asking for too much. If you want them to basically hand over access so that you can set up private servers, anytime a live service game dies, anytime a live service game shuts down, I think that's an overreach. That's all. I think there are better things to argue for. I think refunds are better. That's a more far-reaching form of consumer protection. I think a refund would be solid, but the refund has to be within a reasonable amount of time. So if you play a game for 150 hours and in their third year they have determined they can no longer support the game, it's not financially viable for them. They're facing financial ruin if they don't, and they have to shut down support of the game. Okay. I don't think they owe you a refund. I don't. I think the value proposition and transmission has transpired to an adequate degree, and I don't think they owe you access to their code so that you can set up a private server. I don't think any of that is owed to the consumer. That's my personal position on this. I don't feel you are owed anything at that point. Within the first 30 days, yes, you would be owed your money back. They did that with Concord. Everybody got their money back. I think once you're beyond 6 months, I think it's unreasonable to expect to either be given your money back or permanent access by way of private servers. I don't think you're owed that. There are people that can disagree with me and argue the other side of this, but I don't think you're owed that. Who are you replying to? Oh, owning a video game and being able to play it offline was normal until just very recently. Why is it unreasonable to think that it should still be the standard? Because you're not playing offline when you play Helldivers 2. You're not playing offline when you play Destiny 2. You are playing a game that quite literally runs on their servers. You need their servers in order to play. Stadia was 3 years and got refunded. Oh, really? Forgot to like. I'm slipping. Well, thank you for the likes. It might be too much for games that are currently going on, but it should be a thought for games that are currently being developed and beyond. Okay. Here's the way that I think you win this fight in a way that doesn't require like regulation. We've seen a lot of companies, they'll come out and they'll be promoting their game and they'll say no microtransactions. Or they'll say like no battle pass or something like that. Right? What I think you could start to sort of, it would behoove these companies to come out and say, hey, we're committed from moment one to game preservation and perpetual access. So if our game ever dies or we determine we have got to shut things down, we are committed to handing over access to you guys by way of private servers. See, what you're doing is you're establishing consumer demand and desire, and you're making it a potential then value point and marketing point for companies to promote. I think that's better than forcing companies to do it, because there are companies of varying degree, size, bandwidth, and ability, and you don't want to force them to do that. You could have little scrappy studios that come up with really cool games and concepts that kind of take off. Like Helldivers 2 went viral, was massively successful, and the studio's not very large. What if these regulations were put in place ahead of time? Arrowhead looked at the regulations and said, we can't possibly abide by these rules, so we can't make the game. Do you see what you could potentially do? You could potentially push a lot of fun and a lot of good experiences right out of the market, because you're more worried about something that is, it's almost like you're cutting off your nose to spite your face. It's like, well, yeah, we won. We regulated this and now they have to do it. And it's like, well, yeah, but now you might be making studios completely change their course or just decide to not even make certain games because they can't abide by the regulation. If you make it a very strong demand of the consumer, and then like you motivate companies to say, hey, we're launching a live service game next year and we're committed to perpetual, access and game preservation. And so from moment one, we've designed this game to be handed off to you if you want your own private servers. Well, okay, so the consumers would celebrate that. They would potentially support the game, buy the game, and if the game ever dies, they were committed to that. That's part of like their commitment to the public. Maybe it's even in their TOS or something. I don't know. What if instead of killing games, companies have to sell the rights to said game before shutting it down, or maybe owners of the game can contribute to the purchase somewhat? Again, I think coercing a company to sell the rights of their property is completely an overreach of government regulation. You wouldn't want that. You would not want that. They have to sell the rights. No. That wouldn't work either. That would be very, very that would be very destructive to the market. Who would want to buy the rights to a game that's EOL? Well, if you want to maintain perpetual access. This is why I've said that game emulation and game preservation, if it's not monetized in a way that makes companies money, you're going to have a hard time getting movement with it, because that's what companies would care about. I heard from Twitter you're some lefty socialist. Yeah, I'm a woke loser. I've always said that. I'm like, I think game preservation's great. It'd be amazing if right now I could play Frenzy from the Coleco or River Raid from the Coleco. I think that would be fantastic if I had the ability to access, some of those classic games that I grew up and I played. But I don't think you're going to see companies do it or get behind it if they can't make money off of it. Like, hey, can you do this thing, this massive undertaking, and store all the data somewhere and have version control and quality control, and can you do all this on a grand scale and do it for free? Like, yeah, there has to be a way for the companies to make money off of it, or they're not going to do it. They're not just going to self-inflict loss because they like us. Like, yeah, we really like gamers and we really make sure they have access to games for forever. It has to be compelled, and if you're going to compel it with lawmakers, you need to think that you are making reasonable asks. Yeah, the lawmakers need to think that you're making reasonable asks. This is what I've been saying today. Like, I've watched the videos. I've kind of seen the whole scope of what's being requested, and I think that it did experience some misrepresentation that hurt it to some degree. Maybe not to the degree that people have claimed. I don't think Thor is a villain that people paint him to be. I think social media and YouTube are escalation machines, and so I think, jaywalking becomes murder in this environment. Like, a minor offense becomes a major offense in this environment. And so, but as I watch people defend the movement and I watch people kind of interact with the movement, I came to the conclusion that, well-intended, I agree with most of it, you've overreached in a handful of ways, and therefore this will probably go nowhere. Remember there was supposedly backlash against cancel culture? Yeah, people that are anti-cancel culture, they love it when it's their turn to do it. You know? Cancel culture's really bad until it's our turn, and then it's okay. 'Cause F that guy, like people are very quick to do the thing that they supposedly hate. It doesn't take long. It doesn't take long. It's just an interesting observation. The ask becomes unreasonable perhaps because it's sort of a negotiation. Ask for too much to land in the middle. I think the problem with viewing it that way, James, is if you want the lawmakers to discuss it, you're probably increasing the likelihood of it being dismissed and not considered if there are elements of it that are deemed unreasonable. So it's not like when you're negotiating a salary and you're like, I would like 150. And they're like, we can do 100. And you're like, okay, I can come down to 130. And they're like, we'll do 115, right? So you get more than their initial offer, and they're paying you less than your initial request, okay? That's not what this is. This is the hope to get the government to talk about it, to like get the conversation ball rolling. The danger there is that if something in there or multiple parts or facets of it seem unreasonable, you're going to increase the likelihood of governing officials to say these people shouldn't be taken serious. What they're asking is ridiculous. This would be completely destructive to entire business models of all size, and they would just shove it off the table. So, like, I feel like I'm being very fair to the movement. I'm saying you guys have got good ideas. I think you guys are well intended. I feel bad for the guy, you know, who's kind of spearheaded it. I think, you know, it's taken a toll on him. But I'm also saying, listen, I think you're gonna hurt your. Here's what I'd say. I don't think they're gonna get the signatures that would require then, like the facet of the European governments to take a look at it. Okay, I don't think they're gonna get the signatures. They're not gonna get them in time. Okay, so go back to the drawing board, and what I think they should do is they should come back with something that's more laser focused. Personally, I think they should. I don't know if they can rebrand it because Stop Killing Games is a pretty good name, but I think they should come back with an argument for refunds, because I think that's a better win and a more likely win to happen. I think most governing bodies would see reason. They would see the reasonableness of saying, like, hey, the ease with which we can purchase something digitally, we should be able to refund it within a certain amount of time, given the nature of how software can be delivered in very, very broken or inadequate ways. I think it's a far easier argument to win. You sound like a consumer that just is making a very reasonable request, instead of like, well, if a company makes a game that requires servers, we would like them to, if they ever determine that the game is ending, they have to hand over, you know, the code required to set up servers. As soon as you do that, there are going to be people that perk up as governing officials that are going to say, wait, you want the company to hand over proprietary information to you so that you can have access to something in perpetuity? Like, you're immediately going to set off alarm bells in people's brains that are going to be like, whoa, you can't coerce companies to hand over proprietary information to the public. You're never going to win that one. You aren't. The companies are going to rather winsomely argue that that's proprietary information. You can't force us to hand that over. That would be undue harm to the company. This is you calling to ask for an interview and saying you won't take less than 200. They wouldn't come back to the table. Yeah, this is that when you overreach, right? Yeah. So I think they come back, rally and organize again, get YouTubers and stuff behind it, and make a more laser-focused, more reasonable ask. I think what they're wanting to do is a little too broad, and I think in its breadth, it has things in there that will sabotage it. Yeah. They aren't going to throw out the entire thing for like 1 or 2 points, especially if the rest is considered reasonable. I didn't say they're going to throw it out, Cat Uncle. I said you are increasing the likelihood of it just being dismissed. This is the government we're talking about, okay? Some of these guys don't even understand the technology that they govern, okay? So you're increasing the likelihood that it gets dismissed if they see something in there that they determine is unreasonable. They're going to say, wow, that's ridiculous. You can't ask that. And then they're going to conclude, this isn't even a serious movement. Get this out of here. We can't entertain this. I'm saying you're increasing the likelihood of that happening, is all I've been saying. And the problem with the end-of-life push is that the legislation must be at a federal level. It may not be regarded as important enough at this point. That gets into intellectual property rights, too. How do you argue that someone else owes you the product of their work, especially with the cost of some of these games? Right, exactly. Like the intellectual property work that goes into the server infrastructure. Again, like so I'm saying, that could be proprietary information. Just the security protocols alone, the anti-cheat protocols alone, they could say, no, we can't hand it over to the public. And we can't be forced to pull it all out and then spend a bunch of time. Like, you see what I'm saying? It gets very complex. It's not as simple as people are making it. We're not asking that at all. We are in favor of publishers ending support for a game whenever they choose. What we're asking for is that they implement an end-of-life plan to modify or patch the game so that they can run it on customer systems with no further support from the company being necessary. Yeah, and that's unrealistic if they have dedicated servers because they're going to have to hand over proprietary information on how all that works. Or do a bunch of work where they sort of retrofit it all to not have their proprietary information. I've never once today said that they expect the game to be supported indefinitely. I've consistently said exactly what you just said. They have to, from moment one, have a plan in place to hand off stuff to the public. And the companies are going to rather winsomely argue that that's unreasonable. You are asking them to hand over proprietary information because you bought the game 4 years ago. You now get access to however they run their server infrastructure. What % of games run on dedicated servers? I mean, most of the big ones do. Like MMOs, they are going to run on dedicated servers. Any MMO that you play, for the most part, is going to run on dedicated servers. What I'm saying is I'm not arguing the rightness or the wrongness of the request. I'm saying you're asking something that is such an overreach, the companies are going to soundly beat you in the discussion. All they have to do is compel the lawmakers and say, this would require us to hand over proprietary information and code that we would feel is undue. Like, that's not fair to do to us. That's damaging to our property. It's protected by IP law, or it's protected by, I don't know, anything. If it's proprietary information, they have a duty to protect it and say, we can't just hand this over. Anything PvP these days is dedicated. For the most part, yeah, your major PvP games are going to be on dedicated servers. So you have to listen to what I'm saying. I'm not saying that it's wrong, that like, oh, you shouldn't be asking for this. I'm saying that you're going to lose the argument. The businesses will I think rather winsomely argue and compel lawmakers to say, no, you can't force us to do this. They're not asking for source code, just a patch. No, you don't seem to understand that. No, you can't just patch it. Again, that's an oversimplification of what would be required. You can't just be like, hey, can you just patch Final Fantasy 14 so that it'll run off our servers? Like, it's never that simple. Like, I think, again, we're reducing something pretty significant down to, we'll just patch it so that we can do it ourselves. If it were that simple, I think most companies would do this, and then they would just be like, it's not our headache anymore. We just patched it so you guys can run it yourself. They're not asking for the source code either. No. I'm not saying they're asking for the source code. I've consistently said you are likely asking for proprietary information in order for them to equip you to run your own servers. You're not saying, give it to us. You're inadvertently asking for it. If you're like, hey, we would like to run these on our own servers, in order for that to work, the company would very likely have to hand over proprietary information. I've not once said that the movement is demanding it. I'm saying you're asking something that would require the developer from moment one to build this off-ramp. So when the game is first being built, they've got to build this off-ramp. Yeah, we've got to have a version of this so we can hand to the public that doesn't have any of our proprietary code or any security protocols or any of that. We can't have any of that. We don't want to hand any of that to the public. But from moment one, we have to build the game in a way that makes it so that we can do that at end of life. Like, it's unreasonable. It's totally unreasonable. These games, these servers, how everything interacts is very complex. It's not as simple as like, we'll just patch the game so we can have perpetual access. I've already conceded it's not reasonable for current games, but it should be a conversation for future games. And my contention is, if you argue it for future games, it's bad for the market because there are studios of varying sizes. Like, we can't spend all this year celebrating smaller studios crushing it and then crush smaller studios with regulation. Like, the irony here being like, we've spent so much of this year saying how great it is to see these smaller studios go crazy and hit above their weight class, and then you're going to be like, but we're going to do something that's going to actively make things difficult for them to develop these types of games. Like, come on. Come on, boys. All right. I have a video starting in a moment about Xbox's hardware, which was a significant portion of today's discussion. This has been fun. It's been enjoyable. This is what we do. Make sure if you're watching on YouTube, you hit subscribe and the bell button so you can be here for these daily discussions. I want to know what you guys think of the Xbox hardware strategy. The Laura Fryer video stirred things up. I put out my video is going live right now, and it's called Proceed with Caution. I'm going to put a link in chat for you guys to watch the video, okay? You guys on Purple, I'll be right back. I will not end the broadcast. You guys on YouTube, I will be ending the broadcast and sending you to it, and when it's concluded, we will be in the green room. If you want to come to green room, you got to be at Member Plus. I'll see you guys over there in the chat for this video. Please click the link in chat or ride the redirect.